Jennifer loved this time of year. She could run quietly along the park's paths, breathing in the fresh scent of grass and flowering trees, still warm from the summer heat. And if you go out very early in the morning at 6 o'clock when the sun is just rising, then the pleasant coolness will help to make your morning jog more intense. Besides, not many people like to get up early, and Jennifer liked that. She didn't even take her headphones with her on her jog. She listened to the rustling of the trees and the singing of waking birds. Sometimes squirrels ran, and mice rustled in last year's leaves. The girl could stop and watch the animals. Toward the middle of her training, dog owners came out for a walk with their pets. Some of them Jennifer recognized, as she had met them time and time again. They nodded their greetings and silently went their separate ways. She had started running in high school with a friend. Sandy had decided in her senior year of high school to lose weight for graduation. She was bored with running alone, so she called Jennifer. Jennifer didn't need to lose weight, she was already slim and agile. But how could she not help her friend? But then Sandy got sick, then she stayed up late, then she had important things to do in the morning. In general, there were many excuses, and Sandy's desire to go jogging in the mornings waned. Jennifer, on the other hand, got into it. She felt good after the run, and over time, those 5 to 7 kilometers became a habit. Therefore, even when she moved to another city, she was very happy to find a large park with cozy benches and forest paths near her rented apartment. This morning she ran at an easy pace, as she had missed the previous 2 runs, and didn't want to overload her body before a hard day's work. Through her musings, she heard a rather heavy stomping behind her. "I finally caught up with you," said the young man with a puff of breath. "How fast you run." "No, I'm in no hurry," replied Jennifer. "I don't know. I could hardly get close to you. Maybe you're out of shape today." "Maybe," Jennifer suggested. "I've been out of shape every day lately." "Oh, I'm sorry," the man said. "My name is Mike." "Jennifer. Nice to meet you. I've noticed you running around here in the mornings for a long time. Only usually you're back by the time I get out. Well, today we were lucky enough to get out together. Where are you going?" They were approaching a fork in the road toward a new street. "Oh, great. Mind if I come with you?" "Of course not. If it's easier for you. It's much harder for me. But it's time to get back in shape." As they ran up the road together, Jennifer stopped and turned off the tracker. "I'm done." "Then I'm done too. Can I go jogging with you again tomorrow?" "Please, 6:30. On this bench here, I'll stretch a little bit first, and then I'll run. Just please don't be late. I'm on the clock." "No way." The next morning, when Jennifer arrived at the park, Mike was already waiting for her at the agreed place. They started their warm-up together. "How long have you been running?" Mike asked. "More than 5 years. I started in high school." "And you?" "I've been running since I was about 10. Then, however, after high school, I gave it up. But this year I decided to start again. And you know why?" "Why?" "I just saw how you run here every morning with a smile, and frankly speaking, I envied you myself. I've been in a bad mood every morning lately. I thought maybe starting it off with a jog might help." "Of course it would. It's the only thing that makes me feel better. Just positive vibes." After warming up, Jennifer ran her usual route again. She tried not to run very fast, but to keep a steady pace so that the young man wouldn't fall behind very much. Mike tried his best to keep up with the girl, but by the 6th kilometer he was finally exhausted. "Do you mind if I quit today?" "Of course not. You can run your own route at your own pace. I'd love to do it with you. I just don't have that kind of training yet. Tomorrow, same place, same time." "Yeah, see you then." And Jennifer ran easily ahead. Mike really waited for the girl at the appointed place every day. He ran with her more and more. Gradually, they were getting into the suggested pace. After a couple of weeks, Jennifer already stopped restraining her speed, and the young man kept up with her. "You're getting in shape fast, aren't you?" She praised Mike after the next session. "Thanks to you, my beautiful sparring partner. Can I walk you home today?" "Aren't you in a hurry to get to work?" "Not today. I'm on vacation." "Wow. Why don't you get some sleep or go somewhere else?" "I have a lot to do here, but I can spend more time jogging every morning." "Well, that's great. Soon you'll be leaving me behind." Why would I want to leave such pleasant company? Now Mike walked Jennifer to the front door every time. It was about 10 minutes from the park to her house, and during that time they chatted about the weather, their activities, and life. That's how Jennifer learned that Mike works as a financial analyst and lives on the other side of the park. He has a car, which he sometimes uses to drive out of town to his dacha, where his parents live year-round. The more the girl talked to him, the more he charmed her with his knowledge, competent speech, friendliness, and the man himself turned out to be handsome. "Just don't fall in love," she said to herself as she recalled her morning jogs during the day. "You don't want that to happen now." But the more often she repeated this mantra to herself, the harder it was for her not to remember her morning companion. On their day off, after another workout, they walked up to the driveway. "I can buy you a delicious morning coffee," Jennifer offered her companion. And at that moment she thought with horror, why am I saying this? I wish he'd say no, and she was greatly relieved when Mike agreed with pleasure. They went into the apartment. Jennifer invited her guest into the kitchen and put the coffee maker on. "Do you mind?" "I'm going to take a shower for now," she asked. "No, of course I feel at home," Mike laughed. The girl giggled and went into the bathroom. The next time they went jogging, they got caught in a heavy rain. And after they went up to Jennifer's house, she suggested that the man go into the bathroom to wash his feet, which were covered in mud. "Could I stay?" he asked. "You don't worry. I'll be quick." Sure, Jennifer gave him a towel. Drinking coffee on weekends after a run had become their tradition. They took turns in the shower, too, until one day they bumped into each other in the doorway, and the girl felt the urge to snuggle up to the man. Mike put his arm around her lightly and began kissing her, at first gently, and then realizing that the girl did not resist, more and more insistently and passionately. It was then, after their first intimacy, that Jennifer learned that Mike was married. "I probably shouldn't have done that," he murmured, cuddling the girl in bed. "You didn't like it?" She was upset. "No, it felt really good. You know, how can I put it? Well, it turns out I cheated on my wife." "So you're married?" She jumped up on the bed. "Why didn't you tell me before?" "Well, somehow I didn't have to. As it is about my parents at the dacha told me about the car too. And about my wife I didn't have a chance." "Do you have kids?" "Yes, 2 daughters. So pack up and get out of here. And don't let me see you around me again." "But why?" "I'm so sorry I didn't warn you. I didn't think it would go this far. And then I couldn't stop. You're so beautiful." "Is that why you decided to deceive me?" "I didn't decide anything." Jennifer was sitting in the kitchen, staring off into the distance. How did this happen? She thought. Why didn't I ask him right away? Why did I let it come to this? Then she remembered how attracted she had been to Mike and felt even more remorseful. When Jennifer was a little girl, her father, who called her the most wonderful daughter in the world, suddenly left her mother for another woman. Jennifer then did not understand the complex parental relationships, but fiercely hated her father's new girlfriend. As a teenager, she firmly decided for herself that she would not have affairs with married men. She didn't want other children to experience what she had when her father left. And now she found herself in the position of a mistress herself. Jennifer decided not to cross paths with Mike anymore and began to figure out how she could change the time or route of her runs. The next day, she didn't see anyone. And then she didn't either. On the one hand, the girl was glad that she was no longer tempted, but on the other hand, she resented the fact that she was so easily forgotten after the first time. No more meetings or phone calls. On Saturday, she went into the entrance and suddenly found Mike at the door of his apartment in his usual clothes with a large bouquet in his hands. He rushed over to the girl. "I'm so sorry, please, I didn't know this would happen. I realized I really want to be with you. Don't chase me away, and listen to me." Jennifer stopped at the stairs, but realized that there was no way she was going to get into the apartment unless she talked to Mike. "Why are you here?" "I wanted to apologize. These are for you," he held out the flowers. "You're the best, and I feel really bad without you." "Thank you," Jennifer answered dryly, but her heart was jumping with joy. "Let me through." She walked over and opened the door. "May I wash my hands?" the man asked modestly. I got them dirty while I was waiting for you." The girl shrugged her shoulders. "Come in." Mike went into the bathroom. Jennifer started looking for a vase, which she didn't remember where she had put away since she hadn't received flowers as a gift in a long time. As she bent down to look for the vase in the nightstand, Mike came up behind her and put his arm around her. Let go, she tried to pull away. He squeezed her even tighter. "I'm sorry, I can't do this without you." The girl resisted, but at some point she suddenly realized that she too wanted everything to happen again. She turned and kissed the man. All principles went to waste. Mike rarely showed up for a run now, but he was always waiting for her outside her driveway or apartment. They would go in, tear each other's clothes off with fury, and make love to exhaustion. Then reluctantly they would pull away from each other, and the man would leave. And Jennifer went about her daily business. Every workday she looked forward to the weekend and a new date. You convinced yourself not to fall in love. And not only did you completely dissolve into this man, but you broke your own rules. He's married and has daughters. And you are just a mistress with whom he is resting from family boredom, the girl thought. She was about to come to terms with her situation when she suddenly discovered that she was pregnant. This was not part of her plans at all. Her salary was barely enough for a rented apartment and life. And then there was a baby. The girl decided to have an abortion. Only there was a problem: the procedure was done for a fee, and Jennifer did not have the means. So she decided to tell Mike about the pregnancy. He is also involved in her situation. When the man came to her once again, after intimacy, she said, "I'm pregnant." What he asked her again: "I feel so good with you that I got pregnant. I have to have an abortion, but I don't have the money. Will you help pay for it?" "What abortion?" Mike exclaimed. "It's beautiful. I love you and the baby so much. Give me a son, please. I only have 2 daughters. May you and I have a son." Mike looked at the girl pleadingly. She was very surprised at his reaction, which she had not expected from a married man. Jennifer assumed that there would be a scandal, threats, the breakup of the relationship. But the joy of it completely threw her off balance. "But how, Mike? You're married, aren't you? What kind of son would I have? How am I supposed to raise him? I can barely make a living on my own." "I'll help you. I'll get a nanny. I'll give you money. I can't get a divorce, but I will recognize the child. Please don't have an abortion. Give me a little boy, my dear." "I'll think about it," Jennifer said. And indeed, she thought for a long time. The girl went to the doctor, clarified the deadline by which she had to make a decision, and thought about what she should do. On the one hand, she realized that all the care of the child would fall on her. Mike would only be a Sunday dad. On the other hand, she loved this man so much that somewhere inside she was thinking, "I will give birth to his son. He will see how good we are together, and will definitely divorce and come to live with me through the prism of his love." There was no way Jennifer could adequately evaluate her actions. She needed to consult someone, so she called Sandy, her best friend, who by that time already had a husband and a child. "You're a piece of work," was the first thing her friend said when she heard the news from Jennifer. "And who's the daddy?" "That's not the point. That's not the point. I'm not getting married. I want an abortion, and he's telling me to keep the baby." "Are you crazy? What abortion? Of course you should have the baby. You don't know how happy it is to look at a little person who loves you for nothing. When I look at Mikey, I'm filled with love too." "Sandy, you're married. What if I have a baby and I have to raise it alone in a rented apartment with a small salary? I can't afford it." "Isn't your dad planning on helping out?" "They promised to provide." "But I can't rely on that. I don't know what anyone's saying." "I don't know, Jennifer. They say there's a bunny. There's a law, and I can't support you in your decision to have an abortion. I look at Mikey and I think, how could this be? It wouldn't be such a miracle." "Okay, thanks. At least I talked to someone. Come on, I'll keep thinking. I still don't think I should terminate the pregnancy. I haven't made up my mind yet." When Mike found out about Jennifer's pregnancy, he became even more alert and attentive. He came much more often and constantly asked what her plans were. In the end, the girl believed that the man would not abandon her with her son. And even without voicing the decision to herself, she as if by accident missed all the deadlines for abortion. "When else can I have an abortion?" she asked. Mike was very happy. "I'm going to have a son," he murmured as he nursed Jennifer back to health giving her money for doctors and vitamins and accompanying her to checkups. Jennifer was terrified of what would happen if she had a daughter. But at the next ultrasound, the doctor confirmed her father's hunch. "You're having a son, Mommy," she said to Jennifer lying on the couch. Jennifer smiled. "I'm starting to believe that after the baby is born, things will get better." She took maternity leave from work, and the following spring Jennifer had a baby boy who looked a lot like Mike. She named her son Stephen. There was a dash in the father's name. "I'm definitely going to adopt him," Mike said, but only a little later. "Okay, sweetheart. Look at the little guy." The older the boy got, the less often Mike showed up at Jennifer's house, and the less money he gave her. It got to the point where she couldn't afford to buy formula for her son. So she called the man she loved. "Why are you calling me?" He got angry at the young mom. "You don't realize that if I don't show up, it means I can't. And in general, I now have financial problems. I cannot support another child. You gave birth to it. You have to raise it yourself." "Oh yeah? You said we'd raise it together. I don't have enough allowance." "I don't know what I said. I don't have time for you right now. I'll come if I can. Don't call me again." Jennifer sat by the baby's crib, quietly holding back tears so as not to wake the baby. Well, what am I going to do, she thought. I shouldn't have trusted the man, no matter how sweet the promises he made. She felt bad for herself, for her son, and for the fact that she had been so foolish to rely on a complete stranger who had deceived her and was also rude. When the girl calmed down a little, she began to think about how to live on. Marilyn was very surprised to receive a call from her apartment at an unannounced time. Usually Jennifer only called her to inform her of a rent transfer. But now was clearly a different number. "Oh, my heart smells something's up," the woman thought as she picked up the phone. "Hello, Jennifer." "Marilyn, please excuse me. I'm having temporary financial difficulties right now. Could you please hold off on paying me this month?" "Oh, that's a shame. I've been planning what I'm going to use the money for, but I'll wait until a better time. Something came up. It's not a big deal. It's just that my paycheck's late at work." "All right, Jennifer, just let me know when you send me the full amount." "I will, Marilyn. Thank you so much. Goodbye, darling. Starling." The woman hung up the phone and, shaking her head, muttered, "Something must have happened after all." Entering the room, Maxim asked her, "What did you say?" He had just arrived to help with the move to the dacha for the summer season. "No, nothing. The girl who rents my apartment asked for an extension. She says she's behind on her paycheck. You know, I was thinking, I'll leave you her phone number. You check her out sometime." "Mike, okay. Just make sure there's nothing wrong with it, nothing illegal. It's her first time filming, but there's a first time for everything." "Marilyn, okay, son, don't worry, I'll take care of it. I've already taken her stuff out to the elevator, so it's time to get dressed." Marilyn went to her room to put her medication in her bag and dress warmly. It was a chilly start to summer. After talking to the landlady, Jennifer immediately pulled out the money she had set aside for rent, got dressed and went with the baby to the store to get formula. But this is only temporary, just for once, she thought. What to do next? To get a job, you need a nanny. But what kind of nanny if I can't even buy pantyhose on my paycheck? When she returned with boxes of food for her son and put him to sleep in the stroller on the balcony, the girl picked up her phone and dialed a number. "Emily, hello, I'd like to get off vacation next month." "That's fine, Jennifer. We're waiting for you. But we're not getting any pay raises, and we're running out of money." "Yes, but I need a nanny to go to work." "Well, I'm sorry, I can't make you happy. We're having problems at the company right now, even layoffs. You're lucky you're legally exempt. But frankly, it's not good. What if I go part-time and find a part-time job somewhere else? They won't fire me. Why would you and I have to go public with this? We won't tell anyone. And besides, you'll have child support. It's a small amount, but it'll be a better income. And, you know, I can write you a quarterly welfare check. I don't think it would be a bad idea. What about layoffs? The financial aid is under another article, so one can't interfere with the other." "Oh, thank you, Emily. Then I'll come to work with you soon, of course." Jennifer worked as an assistant in the economics department. She had no specialized training, When she joined the company as a secretary, her smartness was quickly noticed, and she was offered the position with a small salary increase. Jennifer was pleased, because she preferred to work with papers rather than to meet people and prepare tea and coffee for the bosses. And the first person who helped her to get used to the new place was Emily, the head of the HR department. Jennifer was grateful to her and was always happy to come into her office. Now, after the conversation, she hung up the phone and felt ashamed of her request. But perhaps Emily was the only person in whose decency Jennifer was sure. In the evening, when the girl had just put her son to bed, the front doorbell suddenly rang loudly. Well, who has brought resented inwardly the girl? Son, after all, will wake up in her soul. There was still a lingering hope that Mike, who had not appeared or called for more than a month. On the threshold stood an unfamiliar man about 30 to 35 years old. Jennifer, hi. I'm Ben, Amber's son. Hi, come on in. I'm sorry I didn't call. My mom left me your number. Well, I was just driving by, so I thought I'd stop by. Maybe you're home. Are you here for the money? I thought we agreed with your mom about an extension. No, I'm not here for the payment. She said she put it off. It's just that I took her to the cottage the other day, and she asked me to stop by and see if I needed any help. A leaky faucet or a loose knob. It's an old apartment, after all. That's when the baby cried in the room. Oh, wait a second, Jennifer rushed to her son. She rocked the baby's crib and he calmed down. You have a baby? Surprised son of the hostess. And here I was making a fuss. I woke him up. I'm sorry, but my mom didn't warn me. Jennifer lowered her eyes. When she'd met Amber, it had only been about renting an apartment. She'd said, oh, it's so nice that you're alone. No dogs or kids or anything like that. Otherwise they'll trash the whole apartment, chew up the furniture. The kids will draw on the wallpaper. I'm alone, Jennifer laughed at the time. And I don't plan to have any dogs or kids yet. That's fine, the woman said. Then I'll be happy to rent you a place to live, and she signed the contract. Son, Jennifer answered Max's question. He's 5 months old. Your mom doesn't know yet. I didn't have the heart to tell her. Congratulations. Are you going to live here as a family now, or are you going to move in with your husband? I don't have a husband, Jennifer said, and went all in. That's why I asked your mom to postpone the payment. I have nothing but my allowance right now. But I've already made a deal, and next month I'll start working. Then I'll be able to pay off my debt and keep paying. And who will take care of the child? The man asked. A nanny, probably, sighed the girl. But I haven't found one yet. They all ask for my salary for this, and I still have to pay you and feed my son something. But I'll definitely manage, don't you think? Just wait a bit, I'll pay you. I'm looking for a second job. Maybe I'll clean the entrances of our house. Then I won't need a nanny. I can babysit for my neighbor. Can I sit down? Max asked, and without waiting for permission, settled on a bench in the hallway. And what do you work? Assistant economist. We have a good company. I've already talked to the head of the personnel department. She promised me a quarterly financial aid, and I can leave work early. How much do you expect to make, if it's no secret? Jennifer gave me a number. Do you think it's enough money for 2 people with a baby to live in a rented apartment? Max wondered. It will be difficult, but I can do it, she answered. Parents, relatives, friends, finally? Make the father pay child support. Jennifer shook her head negatively. He's married. He has 2 daughters. He didn't care about aesthetics. And when you decided to have a baby, excuse me, what were you thinking? Mike asked for a son and promised he'd help and adopt him. And you believed him? I see. Well, can we see the hero of this soap opera? Jennifer nodded and quietly led Ben into the room where the round baby was sleeping and smiling on the couch, covered with blankets so he wouldn't fall. The man couldn't hold back a smile, reached out a hand to him, then pulled it away and walked back out into the hallway. What am I going to do with you? He looked anxiously around the apartment. Jennifer. I think she'll be kicked out of the apartment soon, she asked quietly. Can I stay here for a couple more months, till I find another place to live? I don't have anywhere else to go, only to the street. No, I won't kick you out. I'm thinking about how to handle this situation. Let's do this. I won't say anything to my mom yet. For the next couple of months, I'll pay it myself and tell her as if you did it. But in return, you'll give me the coordinates of your work so I can see if you're telling me the truth. I'm sorry, but these are the times. Of course I understand. And then when you get a job, get a nanny, and get your life together, then we can talk about payments again. Okay. Chuckles, thank you so much, Ben. I didn't expect you to be so understanding. I thought you'd just send me out the door. I want to help you regain your faith in people. Not everyone's a scoundrel like your Mike. He's not a scoundrel. He just can't leave his family for us. It's a testament to his integrity. Yeah, it's his integrity that made him choose to leave you. Okay, I hate to talk about him. Here's my phone number. If you need any help, call me and I'll try to solve the problem. Have a good day. The man walked out the door. Goodbye. And thank you again. Back home, Ben had dinner and tried to read the news on the internet. There was only one problem: he didn't realize what he was reading because he was mentally going back to his conversation with Jennifer. No, it was understandable that a naive fool trusted some scoundrel. But how on earth does a guy like that get around? At home, he's probably a good family man. Tells stories from work, goes for walks with his daughters, and does not think that someone can do the same to them when they grow up. And now she's got to get out of it. In a week to visit her, at least bring diapers and baby food. It'll be easier. But at the end of the week, Jennifer called. Hello, Ben. You said that if something broke. Yeah. What's wrong, Jennifer? The washing machine. It's broken, and it won't heat the laundry. And I'm like a handicap without it, aren't I? But you understand. I understand perfectly. When will you be home tomorrow? All day. Where will I go? I haven't gotten a job yet, and I haven't found a nanny yet. I'll take the baby for walks. But if necessary, he can sleep in the stroller on the balcony. Right, Ben's mind flashed. She needs a crib, too. Her son sleeps on her couch. Our old, beat-up couch, the one his father remembers. First of all, don't wait up for me. Just do your thing. Just make some room around the car. All right. Okay, I got it. Ben worked at a publishing house where most of the staff worked remotely, only occasionally coming into the office. However, they all shared a chat room where he'd thrown in the need for a crib. Within a couple hours, he received 3 offers to give it away for free with pictures. After looking at them carefully, he chose one. Ben drove up the same day and picked up the crib. In addition, he received several rattles, a pacifier, and other baby accessories. Heading to the office, he was pleased with the future surprise for Jennifer and her son. In addition, he also ordered a washing machine with delivery. To put in a new one, the old one was already more expensive to repair. Ben, did you get married? Jacob, an old acquaintance and editor of the publishing house, greeted him. No. Why would you say that? What about the chat room newsletter? Or do you need this as a prop? No, it's not for me. It's just some girls I know who need help. Girls? But that means you're getting married soon, his colleague winked at him. I didn't think so, Ben smiled. On Saturday, as soon as the delivery guy called and said they'd be there in an hour and a half, Ben rushed to Jennifer's house. She was just feeding her son when he arrived, laden with a disassembled crib and other things. Don't get distracted by me, the young man said to the girl. I'll get everything out of the car, and only then I'll do the washing machine. Okay, Jennifer nodded, continuing to coax the baby to eat the applesauce she had just made from the last remaining apple. And in good conscience, she should have had time to go to the store today. But she didn't bother telling Ben that. The man brought in all his things, undressed, and made his way to the room. Jennifer could hear him moving furniture from the kitchen and wondered, not realizing what he was doing. Maybe Amber asked me to find something, she thought. Then Jennifer heard the sound of an instrument, took her son in her arms, and went with him into the room. Ben had assembled the crib and fastened the sides to it. There was already a crib mattress and blanket inside. Ben, why? We were doing just fine without a crib. It's just a waste. You're not going to need a crib anytime soon, are you? At least until the age of 2, a child shouldn't be ruining his spine sleeping on an unequipped couch. I didn't spend any money. My coworkers gave it to me for free. Their daughter had grown up. They didn't know where to put her. And a lot of other rattles. The man nodded at the big bag in the corner. And in the hallway, 2 packages of diapers. These are a gift from me. Put them back where you keep them. Oh, And by the way, there's a bunch of different jars of purees in there. I didn't know which ones you wanted, so I got a few different ones. But I see you've already eaten. Ben, thank you. But how am I going to pay you back? Why do you keep talking about money? You don't have to pay me back. They're all gifts. That's when the intercom buzzed. Here comes the washing machine. Today you'll have everything in perfect order. The movers lifted the machine to the floor, disconnected, and took the old one. I decided it was easier to replace it than to repair it at the store. It's a promotion they take the old machine back to recycle field, so I saved money, Ben explained. Here's the manual for you to study for now. I'm going to go plug it in. By yourself. Jennifer was surprised. By myself, of course. It's a simple thing to do. Why waste money on installation? 3 hours after Ben's arrival, the new, almost silent washing machine was running. Archie sat in the assembled crib, which Jennifer had made up, and played with the new rattles. The girl and her son were drinking tea in the kitchen. You see, the man smiled. Life is getting better, and when you get a job, it will be beautiful. But I can't find a nanny for reasonable money. They are all some governesses come across, who promise to talk to him in 3 languages, to teach him. And I just need to feed him and take him for walks, at least on the balcony. Maybe you're looking there today? Try among pensioners to look for those who have just gone on vacation. They still have enough strength and can watch the child, and their demands are not cosmic. Where to find them? You will not rush to every elderly person on the street with such a question. Ask at work. And to do that, you have to go out there, and I can't go out there until Stepa's settled in. It's a vicious circle. Let me ask my friends in the chat room if anyone has such acquaintances. I can't promise results. We've already found a crib. Maybe we can find a nanny too. Thank you, Ben, but I don't feel comfortable asking you. You've done so much already, and we're nothing to you. You're my long-term investment. I'm interested in you keeping this apartment and paying rent. So consider it an investment in my secure old age. What old age? You're still a young man. That's something to think about when you're young. But I'm 32 now, so I'm not as young as you might think. I'm 23, she smiled. Oh, it's bedtime after all. I'm going to put him on the balcony. We'll go for a walk. Or maybe you and I will go for a walk in the park. He sleeps in the stroller there, and we'll go for a walk. Do you have time for that? Why not? It's the weekend. Get some fresh air? Jennifer started hesitantly. All right then. You get dressed, Archie, and I'll get the stroller out, Ben said before she could finish. When Ben entered the office, he saw Jacob walking toward him with a smile. He's going to ask about getting married again, he braced himself. Ben, are you considering men as nannies? Ben hesitated. He and Jennifer hadn't discussed that option. I don't know that you want to offer yourself, he smiled back. What about publishing? No, I wouldn't mind. But I've got a lot of unfinished business to take care of, so I'll hold off for now. But I have an older brother, a retired lieutenant colonel in the security services, retired a long time ago. He used to work part-time, but now he says he's fed up. I want something more peaceful. He stayed at home for 6 months and howled. Kids are grown up, no grandchildren. He doesn't like technology. He used to like to go camping with the school. But now, to get a job there, you have to collect a lot of different certificates. And he's not in good health. Jacob continued. I was at home, humming at your message. He's excited about it. He wants to try it. Well, I don't know if taking care of a small child is a relaxing thing to do. So maybe you'll give it a shot. I'll talk to the baby's mom. Good, because I don't know how she'll react, Ben said. Sure. He has a car, by the way. He can bring it in and drive it if necessary. I can do that. Okay, I'll tell him. Robert was not only older than his brother, but taller and broader in the shoulders. He limped a little and came to meet the mother of a possible ward. When asked about the limp, the man always answered evasively. His car pulled into the backyard of the house with difficulty. Ben, of course, was also present. Jennifer's reaction to the suggestion of taking a man as a babysitter was calm. I guess we're just used to the nanny always being a woman, but a man can do the same thing. And it's definitely easier for him to carry a stroller with a baby. Let's get acquainted. If Archie's not scared, why not? Archie not only wasn't scared, but even smiled when the older man took him in his arms and touched his eyes and nose with his fingers. Wow, he's so cooperative. Robert laughed softly. So are we friends now? Archie started babbling something back and blowing bubbles. It was the first time Jennifer had ever seen a child react to a stranger in such a way, and she smiled. What about money? She asked the future babysitter, explaining the child's daily routine to him. Well, Jennifer, for me it's more pleasure than money. But I'm just getting a job. I can't even pay a full-time nanny at the average rate. So you'll pay half. Ben and I will talk about it. What's Ben got to do with it? The girl was surprised. He's my son and the nanny. But it's none of my business, Robert interrupted. I'm sorry, for God's sake. I'm an old school man, and I simply can't take money from a woman, much less from such a charming girl. You'll talk to Ben about how much you're willing to pay me. He'll pay well. Otherwise, I'll take any amount. I understand a week, 2 weeks, a month. We'll see how it goes. This is new to me too. My wife raised my kids. I was always on duty or on assignment. And now the kids are grown, my wife's gone. Oh, what am I talking about? So if my services suit you, and I realize that I can cope, then we'll discuss the final scene. And if not, I'm sorry. But I'll find someone else to replace me so you won't be left without a nanny. Thank you, Jacob, Ben said. It's a deal. Can we do one more thing? Jacob asked. What's that? Just call me Bob. It's awkward. Are you much older? You can call me Bob, and you can call me Bob on a first-name basis. That's what my wife used to call me when she was angry, he smiled. Alas, they've gotten a little crazy. That means I was wrong about something. Why wouldn't you be? Ben wondered. I don't know, it's just the way it's been since we met. They called me Rybakov at school, and at the college too. Or just Okop. She didn't like it, so she came up with a consonant. All right, we'll agree on that, Ben said. You'll just be grandfather to the baby. Is that okay? Of course it's okay. I don't think he'll understand it now. That's good. Why don't you show me how to pack for a walk and we'll go for a walk? You've got a nice park nearby. Bob, with the stroller, proudly stepped forward, and behind him, Jennifer and Ben walked side by side, taking their time. What do you think of the candidate? Ben asked. First impressions are very favorable. If he can handle the baby as well as he does during the day, I don't think we'll find a better old lady. I liked him too. He and his brother look alike, by the way. Only he struggled to find the words, but finally came up with one. What's his? Monumental. Reliable then? Jennifer smiled. Except I still don't understand why you're helping me. I explained it to you last time. It's a long-term investment. But seriously, I realize I can help. Why don't you? Especially since the labor is minimal. I'm the one paying him. If I find out you're paying, I'll find another apartment and leave. All right. Don't worry. Everything will be just the way you want it. Finally, Jennifer went to work. First thing she did was go to Emily's with a box of chocolates. Oh, it's so good to see you, Jennifer. The woman was so happy. Come in, the candy is just in time. Now with you, we will drink tea, and you tell me about your life. How is your baby? Did you find a nanny? I found one, the girl nodded. But the nanny is a man, ex-military or something else. I do not know, frankly speaking. He was so caring. Memorized everything from the first time. He watches over the child. So sometimes I'm ashamed that I don't look like that. Anyway, we spent a month together looking at each other to see if we're right for each other. And? How's the kid reacting? He likes it a lot. He shuts up in Robert Alexeyevich's arms and sleeps peacefully. And where did you find such a treasure? Long story. Jennifer waved her hand. Kind people helped. That's right. There are more good people than there are good people. That's why you have to rely on them. How are things going at the company? No, I'm just retiring and handing things over. I briefly told my replacement about you. She says the new CFO is coming in. She'll take it up with him. Jennifer said the money for such help comes from the social fund. But in her opinion, that didn't convince Amber. So we're getting a new supervisor. I mean, how long can we go on without a CFO? I mean, we have his former deputy acting CFO, Apparently someone's not happy with him. They say they're looking for a new candidate. All right, apply while you still can. They'll get you the money. Thank you so much for everything and for them, and for the human attitude, Amber said. How long do you work until? Until the end of the month. And what are you planning to do after that? A vegetable garden in the country, Amber said. I don't like gardens. Mike laughed. You can quietly. And then you can not pull it out, yes. And the son, apparently it was passed on. He and his wife and daughter spend all summer. And I would rather be in the city, in the parks, to walk, cafes, go to the museum. Well, to be honest, I don't know yet. Why don't you come and visit us? You'll get to know each other. At least look at someone you actually saved with your help. Don't exaggerate. But if you invite us, we'll definitely drop by sometime. Can I write down your address? Or do you have a different one? No, it's still the same. You have your phone number. Call me if there's anything I can do for you. Thank you. I hope you don't need IT. Jennifer was sad all day. She had developed a very good relationship with the head of HR, and she was sorry to see her go. And these musings now and then, thoughts of how she was going to get on with her life, crept in. Well, nothing. The new boss will appear. I'll go to him myself, ask him. He's a human being. He should understand. We can try to look for another job. Maybe I should talk to Ben. I mean, come on. The slightest problem I have, I think he'll think I'm on his ass. I'll manage on my own. All these thoughts were interrupted by Archie's morning call. Jennifer, I'm sorry, for God's sake, but I'm sick. It's been a long time since I've been sick. I'm actually very hardened. Temperature's 39 today. Well, I can't go to the baby's house in case it's contagious. Sure, Jennifer reassured him. I'll take the day off work. Feel better. I really need you. And Archie, even more. I'll make it quick. Okay. I'm sorry I let you down. No need to apologize, Archie. Well, you've been a great help to me for almost a year. Jennifer was about to object, but suddenly she ran out of steam. After losing part of her income in the form of financial aid, it would have been nice. But she was ashamed to even bring it up in front of herself. We'll talk about it later, she said into the phone. Get well. That weekend, when Ben arrived and Jennifer complained to him about her forced vacation without pay, he asked, Do you want me to pay this month's bonus? Why are you all about the money? Jennifer replied, You'd better go over there and ask him how he's feeling. Although I think if I call him, he'll take it as a request to come see the baby sooner. Okay, I'll talk to him. Don't worry. Yes, I also cut my salary at work. Suddenly the girl complained to him. How? Ben was indignant. They have no right. According to our labor laws, it's forbidden. Only if you reduce the working day. No, I had financial aid. Remember, I told you that the head of the personnel department wrote it out to me. Well, she retired, and the new one won't do it without the CFO's approval. And what? He said no. He hasn't started work yet. He's new. He'll start on the 3rd. What if you go talk to him yourself? I've already thought about it. I guess I'll have a look at him to see if he's even in my position or not. Hang in there, Jennifer. Maybe you should look for another job. I've thought about that too. But even looking at what I'm making in this position, I'm not being offered anything else. I'm not good at anything else. Jennifer, I want you to know that if you decide to quit, I'll help you out financially while you look for a new job. Ben, I already owe you everything. I don't even want to consider it. On Sunday, Emily came to visit. They sat in the kitchen and drank tea with a cake that the woman had baked for Jennifer and Archie. To be honest, I'm not much of a cook, but it's our family recipe. And everyone said it was delicious. Of course, maybe they're flattered, but it's better than store-bought, Emily said. Emily, you really are an amazing hostess. Thank you so much, Jennifer said. How's retirement life treating you? You know, I was worried it would be boring. But now I don't even have any free time. I was saving time for you at 12 today. Didn't you promise to introduce him to my boy's toy? Archie brought the woman all his toys and showed her how to play with them. Emily didn't get to play with him until Jennifer took him out to rest. Come, I'll do the dishes here, the woman told her. Oh, come on, don't. Yes, you do. You should rest too. When Archie was asleep, the women settled down in the kitchen. And Emily said seriously, Actually, I've come for one more thing. I want to warn you about your future boss. They say he's an excellent specialist, but he's not much of a man, but I don't know him personally. It's just a rumor. But you should be careful about opening up to him. Let HR ask him for you." "Okay," Jennifer shrugged. "What can he do? The only thing he can do is fire me. But then he'd have to pay severance. I don't know what he'll do, but don't trust him." "Okay. I promise everything will be fine, Emily, don't worry." At that moment, Jennifer heard the sound of a key in the keyhole and the door opening. "I wonder who it is," the girl thought, stepping out into the hallway. Ben and Jacob were the only ones with keys. Ben wouldn't have arrived without a call. Jacob stood on the doorstep. "Jennifer, I'm sorry, for God's sake," he whispered. "I know Archie's asleep at this hour, and I didn't call so I wouldn't wake him." "It's okay," she nodded. "Why are you here?" "Because of Amber. I feel guilty. I wish I could give you half a day off." Jacob walked into the kitchen and stopped in the doorway. "I didn't realize you had company." "Hello, I'm honored to introduce myself." Jacob stood in front of Emily. "Emily," she smiled and gestured him to a chair. "Please have a seat. Archie and I just met today." She looked at Jennifer with a smile. "Emily and I worked at the same company, and we decided to meet today. I hope I'm not interrupting anything." "Of course not," the woman smiled and set the third mug on the table. "So you two aren't working together anymore?" Jacob asked. "I'm ashamed to admit it, but I'm retired." Emily lowered her eyes flirtatiously. Jennifer grinned at the spectacle being played out in front of her by people twice her age. "What's there to be ashamed of? I've been retired for 15 years, and I'm not ashamed of it at all. I can say of such a fine lady that retirement is the beginning of life," Jacob said. "I was just telling Jennifer that I don't have much free time yet. I'm reading books, learning computer programs, going on field trips. You know, all the things I've been putting off for so many years because of work." "How did your family feel about that?" Jacob asked. "What family?" Emily waved her hand. Her husband had passed away a long time ago, and the children were grown, independent. "I don't like that. I don't like that." "No, well, you speak my words." I slapped myself on the knee. "God with it, I understand you perfectly well." And she listened to the conversation between her older friends and found much in common. Then Archie woke up and she retired to her son's room, leaving the two of them alone. "Jennifer, we thought we'd go for a walk," Jacob asked her, peering into the room. "Do you mind?" "Of course not." "Don't you need me, Jennifer?" The man winked at her. "There's no third person." "I thought the third was Archie." Jennifer also smiled. "The children are beyond competition." It was at this time that the baby saw his babysitter and reached for him. The morning newsletter at work delighted Jennifer with the news. "Dear colleagues, you are invited to join us today at 11:00 a.m. in the conference room. There will be an introduction to the new CFO of our company. He will tell you about the principles of his work and discuss further plans for the development of our company." Well, at last rejoiced the girl. At least some certainty. And then to live with the unknown tomorrow is worse than ever. There was excitement in the women's restroom. All the young female employees were tidying up before the meeting to seduce him. "Are we going to do it in a bunch?" the married ladies asked them. "Or is he single?" "Married," confirmed one of the girls. "But they say he's no stranger to the female sex. You can be a mistress to begin with. And then, who knows, suddenly you'll be a wife." Jennifer only chuckled inwardly as she listened to these conversations. She'd been down this road, and it hadn't ended well. "No, of course I have Archie, and that's fine. But the rest of it? No way, just strictly business negotiations," she thought to herself. Or quit. At 11:10, the conference room hummed quietly like a beehive as the CEO walked in, followed by William. Jennifer closed her eyes in surprise. "Sorry I'm late," the CEO said. "I'd like to introduce you to our new manager, Mike. He is now in charge of all financial matters. And thank goodness. Because frankly speaking, I'm tired of your wishes," he smiled. "Please, Mike, you have the floor." Hello, Mike stood next to the chair and slowly looked around the room. "First of all, let me say that my lateness today is an unforgivable oversight. I believe that all of us should work with the precision of a Swiss watch, as a single mechanism. That means no tardiness, no leaving early and no excuses. Only a doctor's note can influence the decision to take disciplinary action. And that, please note, frequent illness indicates that you do not take good care of your health. And with such we will not be on the way. The hall whispered the new chief started his speech too harshly. You will ask all the questions later, he continued, interrupting some employees who raised their hands to clarify some points. Secondly, and then William hesitated, meeting Jennifer's eyes. The girl sat staring at him without taking her eyes off him. Nothing betrayed the emotions that raged in her soul. And it was not hatred, contempt, or even pity. No, she suddenly realized to herself that it was love. A hard, dependent, unreachable love that forgave him for everything he had done to her life. And if she were asked now if she would repeat that path, she would undoubtedly answer in the affirmative. William was still saying something. Jennifer looked at him and realized how much she had missed him in the partial couple of years she hadn't seen him. It was one thing to not see a person and quite another to have them reappear in your life, and seemingly faded feelings suddenly rekindle. After the meeting, everyone went to their workplaces. Since the economics department reported directly to the new director, Mike's office was in their wing, right next to Jennifer's. Jennifer sat quietly at her desk and tried to concentrate, but all her thoughts were on him. That's when her phone lit up. A text from Mike came in. Tomorrow at 9 in my office. Jennifer couldn't believe her eyes. Reread the message and replied, okay, then tried to tune in to work. All night she had hardly slept at all. Jennifer would get up, walk over to her son's bed and smile, thinking, we're definitely going to be okay now. She was sure Mike wouldn't say no to her. After all, this was his only son too. Jennifer pondered what to wear to the meeting to look both businesslike and attractive, but came up with nothing. As she was getting ready in the morning, she found a short black skirt in her closet that she had once worn on dates with him and decided to wear it. Wow. Jennifer, are you going to a business meeting today? The mirror on the wall asked. Yes, a very important one, she nodded. Well, good luck then. You look great, a real modern businesswoman. Jennifer smiled and drove to work. Come in. Mike jumped up and locked the office door behind her, so we wouldn't be interrupted. So you work here? Yes, she nodded. How did you end up at our company? Weren't you a financial analyst? Well, it's not far from one or the other. Circumstances worked out. It's good to see you. You're still running in the park, looking great. No, I'm not up to it right now, but hopefully I'll be able to resume training soon. Great, have a seat. He pointed to the couch. Tell me about your life. How's Archie? So he's interested in his son, too, Jennifer thought. It didn't matter what his circumstances were. He's fine, he's growing up. We're planning to start kindergarten soon. And now with a nanny, Jennifer didn't go into details. Wow, you can afford a nanny? Your salaries are pretty good. Jennifer sighed. I've been meaning to talk about you. She hesitated when she felt his hand on her shoulder. Mike moved closer and whispered hotly in her ear. I thought it had passed, but no. I want you so much. You're still beautiful. Beautiful and free. Jennifer's head was spinning. She tried to pull away, but it only made her more attracted to him. I want you too, she said tonelessly. Do I have a favor to ask? Mike pulled away. Jennifer opened her mouth, but he exclaimed, no, don't say anything yet. I have an idea, let's play boss and secretary. He lifted her off the couch and dragged her to the middle of the office. I am the formidable boss. Are you afraid of me? Tell me what you want. Could you give me a raise? Jennifer said timidly, not believing this game. What? I can't hear you. Louder, raise my salary. She repeated a little more clearly. But is that any way to talk to the boss? You address him as you beg him, and then you do whatever he says. A doubt stirred in Jennifer's soul. She froze. Well, what about you? Mike grinned. It's just a game. Let's give it a try. Come on, express your desire. Give me a raise. Boss, Jennifer said loudly. But don't order it, you have to beg for it. See what the boss said? Take your skirt down. You're a subordinate, so take it off. Not like that. More erotic. How do you do it? You need me to do your bidding. So follow my instructions. Jennifer began to slowly remove her skirt, entering the game. Dear boss, please give me a raise. Why is that? Me and my son Archie will soon have nothing to eat. But any favor requires a return favor. You understand, don't you? And I'm prepared to do you one. Just please give me a raise. Jennifer was so into the role that a tear rolled down her cheek. She realized that she really wanted to cry and tell Mike everything she had been through since he left. After these thoughts, tears came to her eyes from weakness or self-pity. Mike couldn't take it anymore and ran up to the half-naked girl. He was so aroused that he easily entered her and poured all the accumulated passion, standing on the carpet. Then he picked her up in his arms and carried her to the couch. They enjoyed each other's intimacy for a few more minutes. Soon the man stood up. Time for work, he smiled at Jennifer. She nodded and began to clean herself up. All week her soul had been singing from her newfound love. Jacob noticed her mood. "Are you in love by any chance, Jennifer?" "Why are you suddenly asking that?" "It's just that I've never seen you in such a beautiful mood before. It's like you're glowing from the inside out." "No, Jacob, I didn't tell him my secrets. It's just that life is getting better, little by little. Whatever it is, I'm infinitely happy for you. I hope there will be room in this life for me as your old acquaintance." "Undoubtedly. But just don't emphasize the word old." Jennifer smiled. "You have a fine age. If I had been told that before I met you, I would probably have started to refute the fact. However, a lot has changed since then." He winked enigmatically at his ward's mother. The next week, the meeting in the office was repeated, and so did the game. Although it didn't feel so new, Jennifer was more in character now, and her closeness to Mike was back on her mind. 2 weeks later, her boss left on a business trip, and Jennifer waited impatiently for his return until payday. Then she received money even less than usual. The girl came to the accounting department with a question. Mike was the one who told everyone to cut off their overtime pay, she was told. Everyone, all of them, the girls nodded. Jennifer was upset, but decided to wait until Mike arrived to clear the air. When the two of them were alone in the office again, she didn't get flirtatious and joined in the game. "I got a very small paycheck here. The girls in accounting said it was your order." "Yes, I told them to remove overtime pay for all employees. You work here, so that means it affects you too. But why is it your fault that you don't get everything done on time? Why should the company's money go to that?" "Mike, but I told you. I don't have enough money to live alone with Sandy. Right now the paycheck is below the market average. Didn't you promise me you'd give me a raise?" "I promised when here we are, the two of us together here when we were playing and loving each other. It's just a game." "Well, you just said yourself that we were playing. Who said it was serious? But even so, haven't you realized that your son Archie and I need money?" "Everyone needs money. As the CFO, I know that for a fact. For that matter, you asked for it. But I didn't promise anything. I also said, do what the boss says, quid pro quo. That's the rules of the game, which we both enjoyed, by the way. That's me, isn't it?" "I could see you wanted me too. I made you feel good. And we live by very different rules. So you just used me, and in doing so, you cheated on me. But you used my body too. Or did you do it for money? Here's the raise I supposedly promised you." Jennifer placed the resignation letter in front of him. "Sign it," she demanded. "You're talking to your boss in an inappropriate tone. You're not my boss anymore, so sign the letter and I'll quit," Jennifer insisted. Mike got up from his desk, walked over and closed the door again. "If you keep harassing me, I'll file a rape report with the police." "Well, why be so rude? I mean, we know each other well. We even have a son. You should have thought of your son when you signed the payroll. I'm doing this for the company, not for my own personal interests. That's why I'm leaving, so you don't confuse the two," Jennifer said. "What about me? Aren't you going to find yourself another fool? Don't you realize I'm having a good time with you? And I think you are too," Mike objected. "It was good, but it's gone. You can't fool me indefinitely," Jennifer said. Ugh, what a word, deceive. "I didn't fool anyone. You're the one who made it up. Both my promises and my deceptions," Mike objected. "Are you going to sign a letter of resignation?" "Well, if you want to quit, sure. But why don't you take a look at this first?" He pointed to his screen. "And what's this I'm going to see? Are you going to promote me after all?" flashed through her mind. "Why don't you take a look?" Jennifer walked over to the chair and looked at the monitor. At that moment, Mike started up the video files. They showed Jennifer herself evolving in the center of the office, on the carpet, as if to music, almost like a professional dancer. She watched in horror as she removed all her clothes and underwear from below her waist, then stretched her arms toward Mike, who approached her, as if reluctantly, with his face distorted beyond recognition. Her face can be seen clearly, alas, not just her face. It's impossible to tell from the man who it is. "You sneaky bastard, so you were also filming us?" From where, Jennifer exclaimed. "What are you talking about? It's just CCTV cameras. They're in every office. You have to take and sign an order from the CEO and then take the footage. You can do whatever you want with them." Jennifer lowered her eyes. "There are plenty of programs for processing video files. Say, that worked out well, didn't it? Didn't you ever want to be an actress? All girls usually want to, and a lot of guys too." "You definitely have talent," Mike said. "And what do you think your new employer will say when he sees this?" "I won't tell you where you'll be working. Trust me. It's not hard to find out at all. You could put it on the internet and you'd be a porn celebrity. That's not a bad prospect either. Then every man in town will recognize you and make lewd propositions. So are you going to sign the application, or are you going to stay after all? When it's just me watching this movie. It's one of my favorites, by the way. I've memorized all your little gestures from it," Mike continued. "You want me and Archie to starve to death on the street? How can you think that about me? I'm just calculating all the options so you can't disappear from my sight. And what are we going to live on?" "Well, you've lived somehow before, so you'll continue to do so. So how about a statement?" Jennifer grabbed a paper off her desk with anger, tore it up and threw it in Mike's face. Then she walked out of the office and slammed the door loudly, then left the office for a nearby cafe and, locking herself in the bathroom, cried for a long time from her own powerlessness and anger at herself for being so deceived. After a while, Bob walked into the cafe. "Hi, sorry to be so abrupt, but do you know what happened to our Jennifer?" "Hello, Bob. No. What happened?" "She was so cheerful, and then she's abruptly withdrawn, walking around moody. And there's only food in the house for Archie. I haven't seen her in a long time. Is she sick?" After that walk with Archie, Bob and Emily exchanged phone numbers. The man tried not to be annoying, but sometimes called for the most unexpected reasons. For example, when he learned delicious and quick recipes for cooking potatoes, he thought that Emily didn't like to cook either. And here's 15 minutes in the microwave and such a delicious meal, finger-licking good. Or he shared news from the publishing industry, which his younger brother regularly supplied him with. "Alex told me that Shaposhnikov has a new book out. It is already planned to screen. Not interested in his work." Emily, in turn, also shared with him discoveries made on excursions or simply in her now quiet new life. And when the weather was nice, they would also meet in the park, walking and smiling at each other when they were called grandparents, and then laughing contagiously while sitting on a bench. "Well, of course, if Archie calls me Grandpa, then I'm Grandpa to everyone. Not being Grandpa would be bad," Bob said one day. "How's that?" Emily didn't understand. "It's very simple, isn't it? I'd be a grandfather if he called me Grandpa. But Archie calls grandfather that word, according to the rules of the Russian language, would be in the genitive case. Who? Grandfather. And forgive my nerdiness. Anyway, if I'm a grandfather, or even a grandfather, then since you're walking with me, you're a grandmother. I called the girls I know at my old job and found out they'd gotten a pay cut. Maybe that's why Jennifer is so upset. She just doesn't have enough money. I've told her how many times she can stop paying me, but she adamantly refuses to listen to me." Jennifer tried to refuse Emily when she called to say she was going to visit. The girl was ashamed to invite to her practically beggar's house, but the woman had insisted, and Bob had also said more than once that it would be good to meet and sit together. With the last money she had saved, Jennifer tearfully bought tea and rusks and prepared for the guests.
Bob and Emily came in together.
"Can you believe it, Jennifer? We met at the front door. Here to help carry the bags," Bob said. They started taking chicken and canned goods, jam and cakes out of the bags. "I'm sorry," Jennifer said to the guest. "I didn't have time to cook at all, so I ran to the store and bought a few little things." "Well, Emily, it looks to me like you bought the whole store in small change. What are we going to do with all this? Or are you going to live with me now?" Jennifer smiled and looked at Jacob. "I wonder why that idea never occurred to me before." "Me neither," he said, surprised. "Jennifer, I was just talking to my girls over tea," the former colleague said. "They claim that the new boss has removed overtime." Yes, the girl nodded sadly. He says it's our own fault for not getting everything done during working hours, so the company doesn't have to pay us extra. I'm sorry, but I know your salary, Emily said. How are you going to live now? Maybe it's time to change jobs. Jennifer couldn't explain to good, albeit good, strangers how her father had naively caught her on the hook, and that now she couldn't change jobs. I tried, she lied, but I couldn't find anything suitable. So I thought you might need help, Emily continued. So I talked to some people I know. There are at least 2 places that will hire you at 1.5 times your salary. Maybe you could try interviewing there. Jennifer realized that it was impossible to refuse, so she nodded. Yes, of course, I'll definitely go. Thank you for your concern. Mike realized the power he now had over his subordinate and began to invite her into the office and tried to harass her there. If you are not with me, the video will be seen by everyone, he reminded the girl every time. So far, Jennifer had managed to come up with good reasons for refusal, whether it was an illness or an important meeting. But she was well aware that soon all these excuses would cease to work. And even if he started raping her, Jennifer would have nothing to defend herself with. That upset her even more. The girl felt like she was being sucked into a swamp she couldn't get out of. But she was already so tired of this tension that she was ready to wave her hand and give up. Then Ben showed up after hours. He usually came once or twice a month, spending some time with Jennifer, Archie, and Jacob. If he was on site, sometimes the 4 of them would all go for a walk and Ben would leave. This time he arrived late at night after work when Jacob was gone. Archie was asleep, and Jennifer was lying on the couch watching some channel on the TV, thinking about something of her own. Ben entered the apartment so quietly that Jennifer found him when he was already standing in the room. Oh, hi, she smiled. Did something happen? Yes, the man nodded. We need to talk. Let's go to the kitchen. When they sat down at the table, he continued. Jacob came to see me. He gave me a long explanation about Emily, about the empty refrigerator, about your paycheck being cut. All I got out of it was that for some reason you wouldn't leave this job, even though you had other good offers. I'm not retracting what I said about helping you, but I still want to ask why. Is it your desire to sit on the neck of others, or is there some other reason? And abruptly patience burst, and Jennifer nodded. There are. But when am I going to tell you about them? I can't. It would be like I'm putting my problems on you again. And besides, I'm really embarrassed. Ashamed of what? My behavior, my naivety, the fact that I'm using you and Jacob. Even though I know exactly how bad it is and that it's wrong. So you feel guilty. And that's why you refuse to tell me everything.
Jennifer nodded again.
Then imagine that tomorrow Jacob and I were gone. You'd be alone with your secret. What would you do? I don't know. I'd throw myself in front of a train, she said sadly. So you're ready to give up your life, but you're not ready to share it with me. Jennifer sighed and said softly, I'm being blackmailed. Ben was questioningly silent. If he had asked clarifying questions or inquired, the girl would probably have withdrawn. But he remained silent and looked expectantly at Jennifer. My new boss. Jennifer closed her eyes and said in a muffled voice, He's Archie's father. Ben had 1,000 questions. How can you blackmail the mother of your child when you don't live with them and haven't even acknowledged your son? But he restrained himself and continued to remain silent. Jennifer sighed and began to tell. When he came, he summoned me, and we were together again. He was so attentive. Then he cut everyone's pay by canceling overtime. And when I wanted to quit, he showed me a video. Tears came out of the girl's eyes. He recorded everything. He had video surveillance. He hid himself, but I'm on it in great detail. He said he'd send it to his employer or put it on the website so everyone would know what I was like. How's Archie going to grow up with a mom like that? And he knows where we live. And I'm afraid that if I quit, he'll be watching me. He's cut my pay here, and he's always calling me to his office. He makes himself patient, he tries, but I still find reasons to refuse. This can't go on much longer. I'll either have to accept it, or... It's none of my business, but I want to understand why you want to be with him again, after he left you and your son Ben interrupted. I saw him for the first time in almost 2 years, and I realized I still loved him. He was all attentive, just like the first time. I thought he'd come back to us. There's nothing like that on any show. You should really get out of there and run for your life. I'm ready to, but I can't. Do you still love him? Jennifer looked up at Ben with tears in her eyes.
I hate him. I'd probably kill him. He disgusts me. I shake every time I hear his voice, and even when he calls me into the office.
So I take it you're willing to walk away if he stops threatening to release the video? Of course, I lie awake nights thinking about how to do it, but I can't think of anything. It's either kill him or kill myself. Either way, Archie will be an orphan.
The girl cried again. I told you that you could come to me for help. Why didn't you do it right away?
I was fine at first. And when the tape came out, I'm ashamed, Ben. I mean, you're a stranger in this.
Did it ever occur to you that blackmail is a felony? I mean, you can punish him yourself, threaten him with the police, after all.
Jennifer tried to explain herself. She said that Mike had threatened to spread the videotape and then she'd get good lawyers. She's still going to lose, the scoundrel. Okay, let's see who else loses. Sandy's advice was to go to the clinic on Monday and take a sick day. But that meant less income. But it'll get your nerves back in order. Yes, it's difficult, but you can't say no at this time. Jennifer had a question. Out of what funds was Sandy paying God's mom? Jennifer took out a loan. How would she pay it back? Jennifer shrugged her shoulders. She doesn't. She doesn't have the means to pay it back. If she loses her job, she won't lose anything. But if she changes jobs, how? That's something to think about. When Jennifer went on sick leave, she realized that Ben was right about one thing. She was much calmer. She was out of the circle of constant unpleasant thoughts. The girl was listed in the company, but she was protected from Mike's attacks and threats, and she still didn't know what she would do next. Right now she had a break, and it was helping Jennifer recover a little. On Saturday, Ben, Jacob, and Emily showed up on the doorstep of Jennifer's apartment. Jennifer, get Archie ready to go for a walk, Jacob ordered. Emily will go to the park with him, and they will stay behind. They have much to discuss. Without raising her eyes, the girl dressed her son and handed him over to the care of her former co-worker. As the door closed behind them and everyone else made their way to the kitchen, Ben said, I'm sorry, but I had to tell Jacob something. We can't do this without his help. Don't worry, girl, I've brought more scoundrels to light, the older man said. I've been investigating for over 20 years for a reason. Jennifer looked at Jacob. You? Yeah, didn't you know? I thought you were ex-military.
There are no exes like me, he smiled. Now let's discuss our actions.
The same day Jennifer returned from her sick leave, she got a call from Mike. Please come into my office in an hour.
Okay, Mike. I'll come over, the girl said, so that those around her could hear her.
She sorted out the files left over from her absence. Then she wrote an email, replied in Messenger, and then took the first folder she could find and walked with a businesslike stride to her boss's office. Knocked on the office, heard a loud come in and opened the door. Come in, Mike, as usual, got up from his seat and went to lock the door behind the girl. She turned around and watched intently while he did so. I brought you some, she began. The man pointed to the nightstand. You can pick it up later. Where have you been for so long? I missed you so much. He began to come closer and closer. Jennifer could barely contain the unpleasant shiver. Finally, his hands touched her clothes. He left the jacket in place, ran his hands lower down her stomach to her skirt. You dressed like that for me today. Do you want what I want? The girl remained silent, and Mike took it as agreement. When he was about to unzip her skirt, Jennifer suddenly said in a harsh voice, Don't do that. I don't want to. Well, what do you want, you silly girl? After all, I can see it. I want you. No, you're wrong. I'm asking you to let me go and sign my resignation letter. Mike recoiled sharply from her. What? Or is my memory gone? I still have the video on my desktop. 2 clicks of the mouse and everyone around here will know what you're like. I'm not. Yeah. But only I know that. And I'm not going to tell anyone. I can keep a secret. Especially when there's an obedient girl around. Come on, don't be stubborn. We'll be good together. And he reached for her again. Sign the application. And then you'll be undressing already. Are you serious? You think that's going to stop me? I'm serious, Mike. There's my statement on the nightstand. Sign it, and then do what you want. What if I want you? I said you want me. Then it was a deal. Mike took the paper, put his sprawling signature on it, and put it back. But you'll only go to the nightstand through me and what I want, he said. And when you and I are done and you leave your workplace, I will, as I said before, send the video to all interested parties. That will guarantee that when I come to visit you and your son, you won't kick me out. Why is that? Because I'll be the only person who knows the truth about you. Everyone else will turn away, and then you'll belong to me. Isn't it enough that I'm with you now? Why send out more videos? Jennifer asked. Just once? No, of course not. I want you to be with me as long as I want you to be with me. And only with me, so no one else will ever come near you. But you have a way out in a statement, just like last time. And no one but you and me will know about the existence of this erotic masterpiece. Saying this, Mike walked over to the girl and started undressing her. Jennifer didn't move and thought. But suddenly a siren sounded and the internal radio came to life. Attention. Fire alarm. Evacuation. Everyone, evacuate the building immediately. Please do not use elevators, take the stairs. Attention. Fire alarm. What the hell? Mike swore, looking at the radio. I thought it wasn't working. Thank God it does, Jennifer smiled inwardly. That's what I thought. There was a knock on the office door. Mike out. There's a fire. Jennifer began to quickly pull up her skirt, which Mike had managed to unbutton. He grabbed his briefcase and ran to the door, opened it, and sprinted out of the office. Jennifer calmly went to the nightstand, picked up the application, and also, without hurry, went away. The play is over, she thought as she walked down the stairs with everyone else. While the firemen were inspecting the building and allowing everyone to return to their workplaces, Jennifer stealthily got into Ben's car, which was parked around the corner, and drove to the police station. There she wrote a statement, attached evidence, and returned to the office. 2 hours afterward, a police car pulled up to the building. 3 officers got out, showed their documents, and went up to the floor where the CFO's office was located. There they showed them, but he's not here right now. It doesn't matter to us, replied one of the policemen. What's the matter? The CEO approached as the uniformed men were taking the system unit out of Mike's office. Don't interfere with the investigation. One of them pushed him away with his hand. But there are trade secret documents in there. I sympathize. Are you interfering with the work of the police right now? The director backed off. No, I just wanted to understand what happened. The mystery of the investigation. Perhaps your employee will tell you. He's not back yet. All the worse for him. After lunch, Jennifer took her boss's signed application to HR. Mike apologized profusely for losing it in the paperwork. But here it is, signed 2 weeks ago. So have my paperwork ready starting tomorrow. I don't work here. We won't have time for that, the HR girl said. But it's not my problem. Make a note in the employment record. I can't give it to you. Send an order to the accounting department so that they made the calculation. I'll come back for the rest later. I've got some paperwork to get to my new job. Before leaving, Jennifer once again looked in the personnel department, took her documents, and with a victorious smile left the office. My girl, you're just a born actress, were the words that greeted Jennifer Jacob when she got home from work. I've seen the video. There's no doubt about blackmail, harassment, and a couple of other questionable actions. And if they can find something on the computer for the Economic Crimes Unit to pick on, this scumbag won't have a care in the world to get his ass out of the shit she's in. Thank you. Such a great hidden camera on your jacket lapel and good quality recording. The girl smiled at him. Of course, it's a little illegal. Jacob sighed. But my former subordinates won't cling to such trivialities either. When Ben told Jacob about Jennifer's situation, he was indignant. Why didn't you tell me before? Who would do something like that right away? So much time had been wasted because of that. He got miniature recording devices hidden in a woman's brooch through former colleagues. He contacted the fire inspector on behalf of the investigation team and detailed a scenario for the main character. Jennifer, your #1 job is to report to me as soon as you go into the office. And task #2 is to stall for time without giving him a chance to jump you. Okay, I don't know how I'm going to do that. I want to tear him into 1,000 little pieces. I'm sure for your future, and more importantly Archie's future, you'll be able to contain yourself. Will you? Jennifer smiled. I'll try. The rest was a matter of technique, getting the fire alarms to go off, kicking everyone out of the building, arranging time with the investigator to take a statement and camera footage, sending a team to confiscate the computer. It took a little longer than planned. But by the end of the day, it was clear that Ben and Jacob had managed to get the girl out of the trap that love, trust, and perhaps her own stupidity had put her in. Jennifer got a job at one of the companies she was invited to on Emily's recommendation, and gradually began to come to her senses and pay off her loan debt. This is called Sophia Loren Amber led Jacob over to a dark maroon rose in her makeshift rose garden. I can see why the man smiled. So much dignity and beauty. Yes, the woman agreed. And the burrow is the same, requires more care than others. Let's go to the table. Well, did you take a walk in the garden? Emily looked at Jacob, smiling. Oh, and by the way, I was introduced to Sophia Loren. What did you say? I said she was beautiful, but my heart went out to another woman. I said she was beautiful, but my heart went out to another woman. I wonder who that is. You, my Amber, he concluded, hugging the woman. I see all the men at the grill are crazy about her. Emily laughed. At that moment, Archie ran up to Amber. Grandma Emily, let's go. Let's go where, dear? The child waved his hand uncertainly. The older woman took him by the hand, and the baby led her to the honeysuckle table, where Jennifer was gathering treats for the table. Golden boy. Jennifer, why did you keep him a secret for so long? I was afraid you wouldn't like the fact that I had a baby. After all, you only rented the apartment to me. No kids, no pets. Remember? I remember. And I'm not going back on my word. But I'm not so old that I don't realize that life moves on and changes will happen. Your Archie is like a grandson to me. I don't know if Ben will ever give me one of his. Amber looked at her son, who was grilling kebabs by the grill and talking to Alec. I asked to come, Jacob's brother explained. I wanted to see who you were buying the baby clothes for, but also his brave mother, of course, who wasn't afraid to take Jacob as her son's nanny. Don't you have a reason to change your plans now? Ben obediently began turning the kebabs. If I were a dozen years younger, he continued, I would definitely follow your charming mother. And if I were younger, then for the mom of this charming baby. I don't see what you have to lose. Ben lifted his head, looked at Jennifer, and waved back at her. The girl sent him an air kiss. He traced the gestures with his eyes and sighed. Well, that just leaves your mom. Max hasn't been to the small town where he was born and raised for a long time. Most of his life was spent here. The man spent almost a decade and a half in the capital. Once upon a time, he literally ran away to a big, noisy city, trying to hide from almost physical pain, disappointment, and bitterness. It was hard because I had to immediately solve a huge number of issues with housing, work, and so on. It was necessary to rebuild my life. All these worries distracted me and prevented me from plunging into black melancholy. Gradually, everything got better. Max came back to life. Now he has a large apartment in Washington, a high-paying job, even his own small business, which brings in more and more profit every year. And most importantly, Max has a new family, his beloved, loving wife, Veronica, and two wonderful twin daughters. Veronica is younger than Max. Perhaps this is precisely why, with her, he feels like a support and the head of the family. The young wife does not work, takes care of the house and children, and Max is the breadwinner and protector. An ideal model of social cell. With Helen, it was not like that at all. Max still didn't understand how to relate to his first wife. At first, when everything first happened, he both loved and hated her at the same time. It was an explosive mixture of feelings and emotions. Now the man has long calmed down. He has his own life, his own affairs and problems, but he still could not remember his ex-wife indifferently. Resentment, despair, disgust, and even hatred were replaced by a feeling of guilt, primarily in front of the children. I haven't seen Max's sons even once since he left Otradnoy at night from the only roadhouse at the ready. The man then, barely holding back tears, fought the desire to hit and destroy everything in order to give vent to his emotions. Would Max succeed in something in a new place, or would he disappear in the big city? disappear from the face of the earth. He hardly cared then. He was not in that state. The main thing is to stay away from Helen and preferably never hear or think about her again. It hurts too much. Trouble came to Max's measured life unexpectedly for him. Although his wife later assured that she had warned him many times and asked for attention and care. Well, yes, there was something like that, but Max didn't even pay attention to his wife's slight grumbling. It seemed to him that it was all from fatigue. Still, he maintains a large house and manages to look after the children. Of course, it's exhausting. Helen constantly demanded something from Max, and he dressed, in her opinion, incorrectly and joked inappropriately and behaved incorrectly with the children and did not help much around the house, and in general constantly shifted the solution of everyday issues to her, to his other half. Max did not take all these reproaches seriously. All wives scold their husbands, even the best ones. This is par for the course. So Helen grumbles with or without reason. Max considered himself an ideal family man. Firstly, most of the budget was on him. He worked long hours at his factory, often picking up extra shifts, and also that his family does not need anything. The man sincerely believed that this was quite enough. Helen, if she wanted, could not work at all. They wouldn't be luxurious, but they wouldn't die of hunger either. Max's salary would be enough for them all. But at first, the wife could not even think about leaving her school, where she worked as an English teacher. Max saw that she liked her work and had nothing against Helen, even at the expense of her everyday life, doing what she loved so much. And a certain amount in the family budget will never be superfluous. And Max took care of the children enough. Even as a child, he promised himself that he would not be like his own father. At first, he did not notice his only son and was absolutely indifferent to him. And then, when Max went to school and completely disappeared somewhere, it seems that he transferred small money to his mother, but he himself did not appear in his son's life. Of course, the mother did not skimp on expressions when discussing her former husband. Max knew from an early age what a scoundrel, traitor, and generally terrible person his father was. For some reason, hearing this was always painful and offensive. For a reason unknown to him, Max wanted to protect and justify his father. But arguing with your mother is not a good thing. Yes, and she's right. Their father really abandoned them, and even then, as an 8-year-old boy, Max made a promise to himself he would never be like his father, and so it turns out he did no better. When the resentment against his wife subsided, Max's heart began to ache for Stephen and Mary. They weren't to blame for anything at all. The thought that it would be necessary to establish communication with them often occurred to Max, but the children probably hate their father, who left them many years ago, so they won't even want to talk to him, most likely, and they will be right. I met Helen and Max at the birthday party of their mutual friend. It was a fun party at the Dasha. A lot of young people, loud music, laughter, dancing, wine flowing. We fried meat and walked along the riverbank at night. It was great. Max noticed Helen almost immediately. She's so modest, quiet compared to the other girls, and beautiful. No, not the beauty that was fashionable at that time, but as if from some kind of such faces can be found in Renaissance portraits. It wasn't that Max was particularly interested in art, but the teacher at their college was Helen in love with her subject. She managed to interest future welders in both painting and sculpture. So Max did understand something after all. So Helen amazed him from the very beginning. Big eyes, long, slightly wavy hair, slender figure. The most important thing is the look. It was immediately clear from him that he was a kind and sensitive person. Helen didn't flirt with Max or other young men like other girls, but sometimes the guy caught her eye. It was pleasant and exciting. Max understood that he should approach her and start a conversation, but he did not dare. He had no problems with other girls, and he joked with them easily. He could even afford to hug each of them. But Helen, she's completely different. How to approach it? Suddenly, when Max starts a conversation with Helen, she will understand how stupid and primitive he really is. And yet the guy overcame he invited Helen to slow dance when the appropriate song began to play. Well, finally, she smiled at him. I thought you'd never make up your mind. All these words confused Max. It turns out that Helen had been watching him all that evening and understood both his interest and indecision. That's how it goes. But most importantly, she was waiting for the guy to finally give her attention. I wanted this. This means only one thing. Did she like Max too? Yes, I liked it. And how? After that memorable evening, Helen and Max began dating. The girl said more than once that she felt happy and protected next to him, and so it was. Max was ready to move for the sake of his beloved mountain. The guy had already graduated from college and was working at a factory. A significant part of the salary was now spent on gifts for his beloved. Max chose things for the girl with great pleasure and tried to guess whether Helen would like this teddy bear or whether a bright silk scarf would suit her. This feeling was new to Max. He didn't know before that another person's joy could make you so happy. Helen was so cutely embarrassed when she received another gift. She was embarrassed that she herself could not answer her beloved in the same way. The girl did not work yet. She graduated from the Pedagogical University, Faculty of Languages. And this also warmed Max's soul. Other girls, on the contrary, try to trick guys into giving them gifts. Max also had these. And Helen felt embarrassed that they were spending money on her. When Helen graduated from university, Max proposed to her. The girl didn't think for a long time and immediately agreed, which made the guy happy. The future spouses immediately faced many everyday issues, and the most important of them concerned living space. Helen lived with her parents, Max with his mother. Both wanted to start their family history in a separate area, so it was decided to rent an apartment. The young couple got married and rented an apartment in the city center. From this house, it was convenient for both to get to works. Max to the factory, and Helen to her later the household grindings with which parents on both sides frightened young people did not exist as such. Helen immediately took over the cleaning and cooking. Max was used only for particularly difficult tasks. Hanging curtains, fixing a faucet, screwing a door to a closet, nailing a shelf. There were no scandals or quarrels about this between the young spouses. By the way, sometimes Max voluntarily stood at the stove and spoiled his beloved with delicious meat or vegetable salad. He knew how to cook since childhood. His mother raised him to be fully capable and a citizen, and not a helpless wimp like his father. In a word, everything in the young family was wonderful. Max couldn't be happier with his happiness. They ended up with capricious, demanding wives. The guys sometimes complained about their spouses when they got together with someone after work, and Max had nothing to say about his Helen at such moments. Only then, years later, did Max begin to think about what was happening in his life, where maybe it was bad that Helen didn't express her complaints and wishes to him. Maybe even then her dissatisfaction with her husband began to accumulate. It would be better if she spoke directly about everything right away, rather than being so silent. She was silent, and then it burst out. Most likely, the modest, quiet wife was afraid of offending Max. Of course, something didn't suit her even then, but she remained silent out of delicacy and self-doubt. Yes, Helen had her own childhood traumas, hence her humility and desire to please everyone and her inability to defend her interests. In appearance, Max's wife's family seemed prosperous. In fact, Helen's father drank a lot. After getting drunk, he insulted his wife and daughter, showered them with threats, and threw things. This man pretty much spoiled the psyche of his own daughter, but of course did not admit it, believing that he did everything for the family. He brought in a good salary. It was like that. My father-in-law worked in the mines and earned a good salary. But how much work it cost Helen's mother to maintain her husband's human appearance. She made sure that he did not drink before the shift, listening to undeserved insults. Otherwise, the husband would lose his job, and the family accordingly would lose income. Times were hard. The mother could not allow this to happen, so she had to endure it. Helen was very ashamed of this state of affairs, so she did not confess everything to Max right away, but only on the eve of the wedding. The guy saw how hard this frankness cost the bride. Helen sincerely believed that, having learned the truth, Max would be able to leave her. Max, after the story, he hugged the girl tightly and promised that he would protect her from all troubles, and she would no longer have to suffer. This would not happen in their family. Everyone will be happy in it. Both her beloved modesty and lack of pretensions, all this, most likely, was a consequence of Helen's psychological trauma. Maybe for some, such parental behavior would have passed without a trace, but Helen was sensitive and anxious by nature. That's why she became so quiet, submissive, unsure of her own strengths and desires. Max, after hearing his beloved's story, thought for the first time that the absence of a father in a child's life could be even better than his presence. So he may have even been lucky that the negligent father wandered off into the sunset and didn't bother his ex-wife and son. Late about a year after the wedding, Helen told Max that she was expecting a child. The future father's happiness knew no bounds. Of course, it's a little scary and exciting to take responsibility for the life of a real person, your own child. But it was also great, because Max felt as if wings had grown behind his back. Will there really be 3 of us soon? Are we really going to have a real family now? Max still couldn't come to his senses from the good news. He either hugged Helen or walked around the room in excitement. I can't believe it either, Helen admitted. Moreover, I don't feel any changes in my body at all. It's as if there's nothing. But the doctor confirmed the term is already 2 months. So we will soon become parents. The issue of housing again became acute for the couple. Helen did not want to bring the baby into a rented apartment, and Max completely agreed with her on this. When the spouse goes on maternity leave, it will be difficult for them to get a mortgage. Extra 2 dependents still, Max's official income may not be enough to approve the deal. Therefore, you need to act now and urgently, while your wife's pregnancy is not yet noticeable. And in general, it's not enough to just buy an apartment. You also need to have time to make repairs to it before the birth of the child. And the search for housing began. Max and Helen then traveled all over the city and looked at probably 100 apartments. But, oddly enough, they didn't like any of them. Either the area was not suitable, or the condition was not satisfactory, or both spouses did not like the atmosphere in the apartment. It's just that my soul wasn't in it, that's all. And then suddenly one day, Helen came across an advertisement for the sale of a house in the suburbs. The couple did not look in that direction. Both seemed to be on Helen's mind for the apartment. But this is home. Helen's owner urgently left for another country, and therefore gave away the housing for next to nothing. The couple went and inspected the house, and both were absolutely delighted. They literally fell in love with this cozy brick building, surrounded by a magnificent cherry orchard. The yard is big. We could make a playground for the children. Helen was happy. How convenient it will be to walk here with the kids. Just imagine. Well, in the spring, when the cherries bloom in this garden, it's probably just magical. There's also a garage here. Max was happy. I'm still thinking about getting a car in the future. The rooms are spacious and there is a balcony. You can also put a gazebo in the center of the garden and it will be absolutely beautiful. In general, the couple unanimously decided that they would live only in this wonderful house. The mortgage was issued quickly. Everything went without problems. Yes, Max now had to transfer most of his salary to the bank every month, and this was expected to happen for many years. But it was worth it. Valen and Max enthusiastically set about arranging their nest. They repasted the wallpaper in the rooms, partially updated the furniture, painted something, repaired something. These were very pleasant chores. Max protected his pregnant wife from work as best he could. He did a great job with the repairs himself. Sometimes, however, he called friends for help, but Helen really wanted to do something herself in a cozy, beloved home, and she worked to the best of her ability. By the time the first child was born, everything was ready. My son's nursery resembled a picture from a fashion magazine. Light blue wallpaper with cars, a white crib. There were also stylish shelves and a spacious, reliable closet, comfortable diapers, and of course, young parents did not have significant financial resources at that time, and everything was bought on occasion or at discounts and promotions. However, the couple were able to do it. They managed it. Stephen was born at full term. He was a wonderful and problem-free child. Of course, there were sleepless nights, but Helen coped with everything, took care of her son, and managed to do housework. I was tired, of course. Therefore, from time to time, Max arranged fasting days for the young mother and ordered food from the restaurant. True, it was often impossible to do this. The mortgage took a lot of money, and now he worked alone. There wasn't much money, but nothing. They didn't live in poverty. Max was now trying to take on more work. He had to feed his family. The man felt that he had a huge responsibility. It is he who must ensure the well-being of his wife and child, but Max was still happy. Then he had a clear understanding that everything in his life was going exactly as it should. Helen, however, now periodically grumbled, which was almost never observed before. Either she doesn't have enough attention, or the careless father doesn't do much with his son. But that's just the little things. The wife is simply tired, and she probably understands that Max simply cannot entertain his entire small family after a hard shift. Then the head of the family definitely needs to rest. Otherwise, which of him is a worker in the morning? Helen understands all this. She cannot help but understand. Grumpy. So she is a weak woman, she is allowed to. Max was lenient about this. Stephen grew up quickly. Just yesterday he was a baby, and now he is an inquisitive and active boy, asking 1,000 questions per second. Max loved playing with his son every evening. No matter how tired the man was, he devoted at least half an hour to the child. They played tag, put together puzzles, construction sets, and just went wild on the floor in the nursery. It's a shame Max didn't get to spend more time with his son. Work and fatigue took their toll, and yet the man considered himself an ideal parent. He and Helen were unlucky with their fathers, but Stephen has a completely different future ahead of him. And now Stephen is almost 3 years old. He started going to kindergarten. Helen got ready for work. She was a little worried about how it would be to combine work and a child, but she was also happy. Max saw that his wife was already bored at home. She always liked school, students, lessons. Max was happy for his wife. She bought herself new things for work. I walked around so happy, in anticipation of change, and Max was happy. Still, now financial responsibility will not only be on his shoulders. Of course, he earns a lot more. And yet, knowing that the other half also takes on part of the total budget is somehow calmer. And then it suddenly became clear that Helen was pregnant again. This news did not cause such joy as the news of the first pregnancy. Helen cried and blamed Max for everything. He did not respond to unfair reproaches. He understood that it was so difficult for his wife. "Well, maybe you should go to the hospital," Max suggested awkwardly. "We are not ready for a second child. You're not ready in the first place. My son is just grown up. You could at least rest a little, but here comes the baby again. Yes, your body probably hasn't recovered from the first birth. He can't bear such a burden now." Max felt sorry for the baby that was now developing under his wife's heart. He's no worse than Stephen, their adorable, smart son. But Max loved his wife much more than this still unknown child. Helen's health and happiness were dearer to it. Helen at first seemed to be in the mood for an interruption. I even went to the antenatal clinic and got a referral, but she couldn't take this step. Max supported his wife. "It's okay, we can handle it." He hugged Helen, who was sobbing from the abundance of emotions and feelings. "Let's break through. Everything will be fine with us. You are so good to me." Helen pressed herself closer to her husband, as if seeking protection. "What a blessing that I have you." Billy was born a little premature. For some reason, the second pregnancy turned out to be more difficult. Helen had to go to save every now and then. Max, at this time, was left alone with his son, who was already going to kindergarten. It was the garden that turned out to be a salvation, because he couldn't quit his job to look after the child. After all, someone has to support the family. It turned out to be difficult. In the morning, it was necessary to wake up the baby, dress him, and take him to the garden, then rush to work, plow there, until the evening dawn. Then I run to the garden again, doing some shopping along the way, and at home cooking, cleaning, washing. Stephen also demanded to play with him, but Max was ready to endure these temporary difficulties for the sake of the happiness of his family. The baby was born a little earlier than planned, only a month and a half away from normal, and the baby's appearance was strikingly different from what Max had imagined, already being the father of one child. A tiny, wrinkled, bright red face, arms, legs like twigs, almost transparent skin stretched out over protruding tiny ribs. The baby didn't look much like the strong, pink-cheeked Stephen. He immediately resembled a baby from an advertisement, and the girl's appearance evoked both aching tenderness and anxiety. Max's heart sank with pity as he looked at this fragile child lying in a ditch. Doctors did not give any prognosis. Mary turned out to be smart. She did it. True, while the girl was fighting for her life, her parents spent all this time in great anxiety. Fortunately, a couple of months after birth, their daughter was discharged from the hospital as a relatively healthy child. The baby immediately became everyone's favorite. Her grandparents' parents, older brother, and relatives doted on this little one. Either caused something about her from the very beginning. Either charisma or charm, clearly something innate. Looking at his daughter smiling at the world from the stroller, Max was glad that he and Helen had made the right decision. If the couple had chickened out then, if Helen had finally gotten rid of the unplanned baby, this miracle with huge, curious eyes simply would not have happened. Scary to imagine. When Helen and her daughter returned home, Max breathed a sigh of relief. Now again, all household chores and problems were on the shoulders of the wife. Helen did well. The house was always clean and smelled of delicious food, and the children looked well-groomed and happy. Max was happy to return to his cozy nest after a hard day at work. True, the wife again began to grumble quietly. She wanted Max to take on more household responsibilities. Why, if she did a great job herself? Max, however, fully provided for the family financially. To each his own. The husband is the breadwinner, the wife is the keeper of the hearth. Helen made an ideal hearth keeper. Max constantly told her about this. For some reason, such compliments did not particularly please my wife. Strange. Max was not a completely inattentive and insensitive spouse. Sometimes he arranged for Helen to have relaxing evenings and let her go out with her friends, and at this time he himself remained with the children and periodically got rid of his wife's cooking. He ordered delivery from a restaurant and took his family to resorts every year, so the man's conscience was clear. Things were looking up for Max at work. The young, intelligent specialist was noticed and began to be promoted. Soon the man was appointed head of the workshop, which had a very good effect on his salary. At that time, Mary had just turned 3 years old. My daughter started going to kindergarten. Helen thought about going to work again. True, now with 2 children in her arms, she was even more worried. How will I manage everything? Helen lamented. Children need so much attention. They have clubs and sections. Who will drive them now? And in general, devote time all day to other people's children and see your own only in the evening. But you don't have to go to work yet, Mike noted reasonably. He had been considering this option for a long time but had not discussed it with his wife. Max was silent only because he was sure that Helen could not live without her school. And here it is. The wife, it turns out, doesn't want to leave maternity leave herself like this. What's it like not going to work? Helen didn't understand. Yes, very simple. I earn enough. It's enough for us. So don't rush. Stay calm at home and take care of the children. Moreover, Stephen will soon go to first grade. It needs to be prepared. And then lessons. Helen thought about this proposal for about 2 days, weighed the pros and cons, hesitated, and then made her final decision. Yes, you're right, she said at dinner, looking into her husband's eyes. Probably in our situation, it's really better for me to take care of the children. That's great. Max was happy. He suddenly felt like a mountain had been lifted from his shoulders. Nothing will change. Your home will be just as warm and cozy. And now he can handle the financial side of the issue quite well alone. In the years that his wife was on maternity leave, Max made good progress in his career. Everything worked out in the best way for the family. Time flew by at great speed. Max worked. The children grew up. Helen took care of the house and heirs, periodically sighing about her ruined career. No, she tried to go to work several times, but very quickly realized that the salary was not worth the effort. At home, everything suddenly deteriorated. The children were slipping in their studies. Permanent bedlam settled in the rooms. The family ate pasta, sausages, and other obviously unhealthy food made in haste, and then Mary was constantly sick. First one thing, then another. These were the consequences of prematurity. Nothing seemed so serious and critical. But nevertheless, Helen had to travel with her daughter to doctors. So, experiments with work for Helen ended almost as soon as they began. It's okay. The children will grow up. We'll catch up, Max reassured. It's good for you to talk, Helen sighed. What a great guy you are. Already a big boss. I'm proud of you, I really am. But it's also a shame for myself. Years of study, it turns out, were in vain. Housekeeping is all she... At such moments, Max hugged Helen, hugged her tightly, and reassured her. He really appreciated what his wife did for the family. A clean house, delicious hot lunches and dinners, successful children thanks to constant attention. It's just a dream, a fairy tale. There is no need to wish for more. But Helen's complaints about the lack of implementation of communication with colleagues and personal growth, Max did not take them seriously. And what is Helen worried about? Would she really change places with her peers who carried children and worked from morning to evening and carried on everyday life? And of course, looked the part. The spouse does not understand his happiness. Well, it's okay, it's not scary. The main thing is that Helen is the right wife. Her husband and children are her priority. It's so cozy, warm, and easy to live in the world. Max believed that he had many years of a happy family life ahead of him. And then a calm, prosperous old age close to his beloved wife and surrounded by children and grandchildren. But fate decreed otherwise. Open a women's club or something like that. It seems like a place where local ladies gather to read books, hold discussions on certain issues, chat about pressing topics like staying fit, raising children, and recipes, and so on. I thought that in our city there are many women who, like me, are literally locked within four walls. Helen explained to her husband with inspiration. Surely I will have clients. Moreover, we don't have anything like this in our city yet. The niche is not occupied. Well, I do not know. Max shook his head. He didn't think that his wife would have many potential clients in their small town. Still a deep province. The average salary in the city is low. This is how he managed to get to the right place at the right time. Hence the prosperity. Not everyone is so lucky. They don't have a capital. After all, for there to be so many unemployed, bored ladies here. You will give me money to develop my business, right? Helen's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. Max sighed and explained to his wife why her idea was doomed to failure. With every word he said, the woman's eyes became sadder. The corners of her mouth drooped down. Max understood that he was telling his beloved the hard truth. He was sorry to disappoint Helen, but she should know what she was getting into. And in the end, Max simply doesn't want to throw money away. It's not so easy for him to get them anymore. No, if Helen wanted expensive jewelry, a new fur coat, or a trip to the resort, you are always welcome. But spending a decent amount of money on a castle in the air, which will undoubtedly burst immediately, well, no. Probably, having received a refusal from her husband, Helen finally decided something for herself. Max understood everything later, only later, when he calmed down a little and was able to analyze the situation. Then he should have helped his wife, given her money, supported her, and he behaved, to put it mildly, ugly. To hell with them. With money, let them disappear, but the warm, trusting relationship between the spouses would remain. And anyway, who knows, maybe Helen's idea would have worked. By the way, only later Max realized that this was exactly what he was afraid of. Helen will become wealthy, successful, financially independent. And what does she need it for then? The man liked to feel like the breadwinner and protector of the family. But Max also realized this too late. And when I realized it, I was horrified. Was he really that selfish? It's strange how Helen didn't divorce him sooner. Some more time passed. It seems that outwardly nothing has changed, but still Helen has become different. Max didn't notice it right away, but then he realized it. Of course, the previously cheerful, attentive wife became somehow alien, cold, distant. If earlier, when she met her husband from work, she joyfully shared with him the news of the day and bombarded him with questions, now she was more and more silent, thinking about something of her own. You can't get too many words out of her. But I stopped grumbling about it and without it. No, this did not affect the quality of cleaning and cooking. Lunches and dinners were still excellent, and the house was sparkling clean, but he was worried about Helen's condition. He tried as best he could to please her, bought gifts for no reason, took the children for a walk to give his wife a rest. All these attempts did not change the situation in any way. Max drove himself into anxious thoughts. Eventually, we'll stop. Why should she complain about life? Why should she suddenly be sad? Her husband fully provides for the whole family, and at a quite decent level. Helen herself has the opportunity not to work, but to take care of the house and children. Yes, all her friends are jealous of her. Everyone would like to be in her place. Max calmed himself down and plunged headlong into his work. The boss just got involved in a new project, so Max sometimes had to spend the night in the office. There was good money at stake. Max still believed that he had a reliable back at home. The wife is caring, sensitive, kind, faithful. So it was, is, and will be. How wrong the man. We need to talk, Helen greeted her husband with these words from work that evening. Max sat in the office with a report. It took a long time to tinker with it, but I managed to do everything. The children were already asleep in their rooms. It seems that Stephen had a chess tournament today, and Max, being too busy, didn't even call to find out how his son was. This is probably what Helen wants to talk about. She, of course, wants more attention, but what can she do? Max adores his family, but someone has to earn a comfortable life because he is trying for them. The man prepared to make excuses for forgetting about an important event for. Of course, he will ask for forgiveness, and tomorrow he will buy his son some kind of reward. We'll definitely buy it. But the topic of the evening conversation turned out to be completely unexpected. We need to get a divorce. Helen looked her husband straight in the eyes with a serious, cold gaze. The face is calm and confident. The woman had clearly thought it through, weighed everything, and no longer doubted that she was doing the right thing. Max blinked his eyes in confusion. Unlike his wife, he was not ready for such a conversation. It was as if he had been hit on the head with a bag of sand. Even my eyes grew dark. It's obvious that we're not on the same path, Helen sighed. Every year I become more and more convinced of this. I tried to tell you, I tried to fix everything. Remember how many times I told you, but you don't understand me at all and seem to see me only as a service staff. I can't do that. I feel like I'm losing myself and I don't like it at all. It scares me. It's not true, Max objected. I love you. I love you sincerely and with all my heart. You are my closest person. It only seems to you, Helen sighed again. You love the image that you yourself created. A cozy housewife, a comfortable life partner, a good mother. What about my interests? My career, self-realization. That's the problem. It's not a problem. I'll give you money for your business. How much do you need? Reminding? It's already late. Helen shook her head. I don't need anything from you. I have already found money, even sponsors who believed in me and my project and are willing to risk their capital. So even better. It's nice to know that I am moving towards my goals on my own, achieving everything myself. But with you, I feel bad and stuffy. It's like you're dragging me down. We need to get a divorce before it's too late. We are still young. You still have time to arrange your personal life. It will be better this way. I don't want to live without you. I can't. Max kept trying to find the right words. How to convey to Helen how dear she is to him. How to convince her that everything will be fine with them. He will improve, for sure. Max, I know you well. Maybe even better than yourself. Helen smiled for the first time since the beginning of the conversation. That's why I'm sure that you can and will even be happy. Sure. And the children, how are they without a father? Children. Helen grinned. You might think you spend a lot of time with them now. Don't worry about your children. No one is going to deprive you of them. And I couldn't have done it even if I wanted to. You will also see each other, communicate, and walk together. If you want, of course not. No one will. Max spent a long time convincing Helen to come to her senses, swore his love, and promised to improve. Bargained even, it seems, threatened. But Helen stood her ground. She firmly decided for herself that she could not live with Max because he supposedly limits her, does not see her as a talented and successful person, and this cuts off her wings and takes away her energy. As a result, Max slammed the door and left his dear and cozy home. Once upon a time, this place was for him a quiet, warm haven where he could hide from life's hardships and work troubles. But now here he was hurt, trampled, humiliated. Max got behind the wheel, pressed the gas pedal all the way, and rushed through the deserted dark streets. Where should he go? The man didn't know this, but he definitely didn't want to return home. As a result, Max ended up on the bank of a river flowing outside the city. I sat right on the grass, wet from the evening dew, and looked at the large stars. Tears were streaming down my cheeks. It's good that no one saw him at that moment. Pathetic, confused, humiliated, disgusted with myself. Feelings changed at a dizzying speed. Resentment. He did so much for the family. He disappeared at work for days, just so that his children and wife did not need anything. Yes, and Helen, to the best of his ability, tried to help around the house and with the baby, but they trampled him like that, put him out the door, like someone unnecessary, useless, disgustingly unpleasant. Anger. How dare she? What does she think she is? I sat at home all this time, rested, and wandered around the resorts. And then it suddenly turns out that Max limited her in everything and did not allow her to develop. Fear. Will he really be left alone now? Max is used to the fact that everything in his life goes according to plan. Career, strong family, ideal situation. He liked to return to his cozy nest. He liked to see how wonderful his children were growing up and what. Now it's all over. Max moved into a rented apartment. I couldn't stay at home. It was too painful and too hard. Helen called him. They needed to settle a lot of domestic and legal issues. Max spoke to his wife reluctantly. These conversations caused him almost physical pain. With secret gloating, the man detected notes of guilt in his wife's voice. Of course, she sees how hard it is for him and understands perfectly why her husband is now in such a state. She's probably suffering. She's still conscientious. That's what she needs. Max hoped that Helen would change her mind. Sometimes he tried to convince his wife that there was no need to rush, but the woman gently stuck to her line. She was serious about getting a divorce and a completely new life. The divorce took place by court decision. All jointly acquired property was divided between the spouses. Car, house, funds, and bank accounts. According to Max, This is not a particularly fair decision, given that he earned the money for all this. Helen hardly worked during her marriage, but you can't argue with the law. Max was still in a lot of pain. He lived in a rented apartment and tried to forget himself at work. The man deliberately took on difficult tasks so as not to be left alone with sad thoughts. Max kept the car, which actually belonged to both him and Helen. But Helen and the children lived in their common house. As long as it stays that way, this was a mutual agreement between the now former spouse. Max had no idea how long the period of limbo would last. Several months passed before he regained the ability to think calmly and reason adequately. Then a more or less acceptable image of the future took shape. Max will pull himself together, work hard, pay child support, and buy an apartment with more. Well, his income is good. He can handle it. It will be necessary to determine the order of meetings with the son and daughter. Max didn't want to lose touch with them. He dreaded the prospect of becoming a father like his own. The man planned to actively participate in the lives of his son and daughter. As for Helen, she is now actively developing her business. She seems to be doing well, so Max shouldn't have doubted her. Helen is very busy and needs support. Max will show it to his soulmate. Perhaps then Helen will understand what a good, reliable, noble person her now ex-husband is and will return to him, and everything will be as before. Max's hopes were not destined to come true. He recovered a little from the shock when another surprise hit him. That evening, Max decided to walk to the shopping center to buy himself something for dinner. I deliberately chose the long road through the park to warm up a little. It was a wonderful warm evening. There were a lot of people in the park. Couples in love, parents with children, crowds of walking teenagers. He didn't notice Helen right away. At first, Max almost walked past his wife. The eye accidentally caught on the light yellow dress that suited Helen so well, especially at the end of summer when she was already tanned. Helen walked hugging the young man. He looked at her with loving eyes and carefully caught her every word. Helen looked happy and very beautiful. It was clear that she liked being around this man. So she met someone, hence the divorce and division of property. And these conversations are about misunderstandings. Max suppressed the urge to approach the happy couple and start a scandal. He turned around and hurried home. In the apartment, Max gave vent to his emotions, slammed a plate on the floor, and smashed his knuckles against the concrete wall. All these measures helped little. Helen seemed so right, so reliable, and suddenly it turns out that she has a lover. So maybe this is some kind of far-fetched misunderstanding that is to blame for the divorce. That same evening, Max called his wife and demanded an explanation. "Did you see me with Andy?" Helen was not at all embarrassed. "Yes, we are together now. But I didn't deceive you while we were married. There was no relationship between me and him." Max still couldn't help himself. He unleashed a torrent of vicious insults on his ex-wife. He wanted her to be in his place, to feel his pain. But Helen just hung up. Nothing. Max shouted into the emptiness of the rented apartment, "I will take revenge on you again, so that it won't seem enough." At first, the man wanted to punish this Andy, beat him up, or do something more sophisticated. I found out more about him. It turned out that Andy worked as an ordinary psychologist at a local energy company. No power, no money. Yes, average. And how could he hook Helen? Why does she need this loser? Maybe Andy even set his sights on Helen because of her house. And what? There are a lot of square meters. The location is good. Helen, if you judge it that way, is an inviolable bride despite having 2 children. House. How long did it take them to choose it, and with what pleasure did they arrange it? Will it really now have a new owner, this same Andy? But this is Max. It was Max who earned this house with his hump, who invested so much money, labor, and soul into. "You want to see a quiet life?" Max grinned. A plan for revenge has already matured in his head. At that moment, the man did not even think about the consequences. The main thing is to take revenge on his wife, to disrupt her plans for a happy, carefree life with her new gentleman. Max immediately began looking for a buyer for his part of the house. He decided to leave the city, leave his high-paying job, his friends, his career, and move to Washington to start all over again. It's just that in a small town, everything reminded us of a happy past. It was unbearable, too painful, too hard. Max was going to sell his part of the house, but not to the first candidate he came across. A drunk and senile grandmother or large family of migrants. A cheerful company was needed for the unfaithful wife so that life would not seem like honey to her. Max was not interested in money. He would earn it later. The main thing is to annoy your ex-wife. Let her understand that without him she is nothing. Let her see how insignificant her lover is. Many years later, Max could not understand himself then, why he did not think about his own children. They were not to blame for anything. Why do they need it? Max was too blinded by hatred and jealousy to think about such things. His nature yearned for revenge, and he behaved very rudely towards Helen. The ex-wife was right, she divorced him, and accordingly, she had every right to her personal life. Max's anger and rage were unjustified. People responded to advertisements for sale. Max received dozens of calls every day. Of course, this offer was more than profitable. Half of a large house in a good area of the city. Almost the price of a dorm room. Everyone was somehow too prosperous. They won't make life particularly difficult. We need someone more interesting, more colorful. And then one day, a young guy contacted Max. It was a poor student from some village. He came to the city and rented an apartment from an old woman. The guy decided that it would be cheaper for him to take out a loan and pay a much smaller amount to the bank every month than he gave to the elderly tenant. And here, consider it, he will pay for his own. Max thought about it. Student, that's good, very good. The young man will probably take friends and have noisy parties. Helen will definitely not seem a little. With signs of the very next day, Max met with a potential buyer in a cafe to discuss all the details, and then go together to inspect the house. The student turned out to be a very young guy. Thin with thick glasses, pimply, and somewhat homely. The entire ridiculous appearance of the potential buyer had nothing to do with his confident voice and the firm look of his gray eyes. Max wondered if this mattress could give his wife a fun life. Somewhat quiet. It is immediately clear that he is unpopular. It's hard to imagine this student as the organizer of a noisy party. Anyway, all the same, Helen is in for a very unpleasant surprise. A stranger in the house. Few people would like this. It's time for Max to hurry up. He left the factory and has already found a place for himself in Washington. They are expecting him in a week, so we need to finish all our work and fly off to a new life. Helen, of course, was very surprised. She also glanced with hostility at the student, who was looking around the rooms with an imperturbable expression. But the ex-wife was silent. What could she say? It was Max's full right to sell his half of the house. It suits me. The boy finally smiled. No, so that's great. Tomorrow then we will settle all legal issues. Let's finalize the deal. Well, move in and live. What are you doing? Helen shouted into the phone. She dialed Max immediately after the door closed behind the visitors. I didn't start a scandal in front of the student. There was desperation in her voice. Do you even know something about him? About the person whom he placed with his own children? I don't know anything at all. Max, answered his ex-wife calmly, but you will soon get to know him very well. I hope you have a normal relationship, but I'm confident in you. You always seem to find a common language with young people. Maybe you'll thank me again. Oh, you. Helen burst into an angry tirade. Max didn't listen to the end, just hung up. My soul felt a little lighter. Now Helen is truly upset, and that's putting it mildly. It's okay, he'll survive. Let her negotiate with the student and look for money to buy out his share. And this guy seems to be no slouch. He won't give up what he has so easily. He will try to profit from this situation, or attempts to see right through the young buyer. A poor guy from the village dreaming of getting hooked in the city. And then suddenly, such luck. No, he won't waste his chance. He won't let him down. Max was sure of this. Let it finally dawn on her that without her ex-husband, she is nothing. And this Andy will not help her in any way. He's not a man at all. Maybe the lover will even go into the fog when he realizes that there are problems. Soon Max flew to Washington. At the new job, I had to learn everything again, delve into many nuances. And then there were pressing issues, finding housing, arranging life. And it was great because the man had no time or energy left for sad thoughts about what. The salary was good, such that Max had previously never dreamed of even in his leadership position. But most of the earnings were given out in an envelope unofficially. All the better. You will receive less alimony. Oddly enough, Max again didn't think about children. It was as if some kind of Helen was standing before my eyes. This is what resentment means. Years passed. Max again achieved career heights, now much greater than before. And how could it be otherwise if he devoted himself entirely to work? What else could he do to distract himself? Of course, such diligence yielded results. The man tried not to remember about his ex-wife, At first, it was very painful, then it was embarrassing. Finally, time also played a role. When you don't see people for a long time, don't communicate with them, they become like strangers. Max regularly paid child support to his daughter and son, but he did not maintain communication with his children and wife. Sometimes, out of curiosity, I looked through Helen's social networks. He saw photographs of his happy ex-wife and the once hated Andy, who never ran away anywhere. Children growing up and felt less and less feelings for these people and the situation itself. I knew that Helen and the children were alive and well. This was quite enough. At first, the ex-wife tried to initiate communication between the children and has she forgiven Max? He did not know. But Helen really wanted, for the connection between father and children to remain intact. You, like no one else, should understand how important it is for children to have a father in their lives, Helen convinced her ex-husband over the phone. You told me many times how hard it was for you without your dad. Max categorically did not want any communication at all. Ideally, he dreamed of starting a new life. It was as if nothing had happened. He never asked Helen any questions. What was it like to live in a family with a neighbor who unexpectedly fell on their head? How did they get out of the situation, and did they get out? All this no longer concerned Max. He had his own plans, his own concerns. Several more years passed. Max met the beautiful Veronica at a corporate party. A slender, tall, relaxed, and very determined young lady. Somehow, everything started spinning quickly for them. In general, 3 months after they met, Veronica announced she was pregnant, and Max proposed to her. So what? The man was already tired of his bachelor life. He wanted home comfort and warmth. There were financial resources for the family. So why wait? Veronica turned out to be a very obedient wife. Perhaps the age difference played a role. The new wife was much younger than Max. She asked her husband's opinion on any matter, constantly complimented him, looked after him, and never grumbled. Everything suited her. This was very flattering for Max. Soon 2 wonderful twin girls appeared in the family. Max became a father again, this time more attentive and caring than before. The man took into account past mistakes. He now knew that children vitally needed the presence of both mom and dad nearby, and did not spare time and warmth for his little daughters. "You are the perfect father, the perfect husband," Veronica often exclaimed. "How lucky I was that we met by chance." Then, Max smiled back. He was happy too. Years ago, leaving in upset feelings into the unknown, the man could not imagine that someday all this would happen in his life. Beautiful, loving wife, children, career. This time, Max was more attentive to his wife. He was sensitive to the changes in her mood. Veronica herself decided not to work. Just like Helen. Once upon a time, a young wife devoted herself to family, but the difference was still present. She clearly did not feel disadvantaged in any way. She was sincerely happy about Max's gifts, enjoyed cleaning and cooking, and tinkered with the children a lot. At the same time, she didn't forget about herself. Several times a week, she left the little ones in the care of a nanny, while she and her friends went to a fitness club or bar. Max did not think about his ex-wife and older children for a long time. It was easier for him that way. Stephen and Mary have already become adults. Neither daughter nor son expressed a desire to find their father and talk to him. Max was rather happy about this because he didn't know what to talk about with his grown-up children. And then suddenly the man found himself thinking about them often. How did they live all these years? Are his children happy? Maybe they need help. Max decided that he should take the first step. Yes, it will be difficult. Surely both Helen and the children hate him, and deservedly so. Helen honestly tried for a long time to establish communication between her son, daughter, and her father, and she did the right thing. She is right. It is really important for children to have a father in their life. Just how long can you bang your head against a concrete wall? So Helen gave up. She failed to reach her ex-husband through his anger and resentment. Veronica saw that something was wrong with her husband. She was always sensitive and attentive. "Are you worried about the children?" One day she decided to talk. "You can't hide anything from you." Max smiled sadly. "Yes, it's not difficult to guess at all." The woman shrugged. "You even pronounce their names in your sleep sometimes. I see how hard it is for you." "It's hard. What will you do now?" "I have so much to do with my time that I can't straighten it out." "Yes, you stumbled. But you can also understand. You were in shock and felt betrayed. You were not capable of adequate thoughts and actions. It's like a state of passion. You've got so much going on, but, it's never too late to fix everything. As long as everyone is alive, it's never too late. Nah, do you think so? Max looked at his wife with interest. Just go there. Veronica put her hand on the man's shoulder. Go and talk to them. Whatever happens, you will feel better. You see, it's hard for me to see you so sad. Thank you, Max hugged Veronica with gratitude. No matter how bad a person he was, fate was always favorable to him. And Max's work worked out well, and the people around him turned out to be wonderful. When a conversation with his wife inspired Max and gave him strength and determination. Yes, Max will go to his hometown and meet with his ex-wife and older children, and so Max again found himself in the city of his childhood and youth. It turns out that he had already forgotten how dusty, narrow the streets are here, and how unusually few people there are on the streets. It's quiet around, not at all like in Washington. The man decided to walk home. I walked from the hotel itself through almost half the city, but still did not feel tired. On the contrary, the movement seemed to give strength. Max is already close. All he has to do is turn the corner, and he will see the house that was once so dear to his heart. The man was overcome with excitement. The house has changed a lot. Previously, it was an ordinary brick building. Now it is a stylish structure with geometric patterns, large windows, and a superstructure. The cherry orchard has turned into a mini park with a tiled fountain, paths, and statues. The most amazing thing is that the central part of the territory was now occupied by a swimming pool. How is this even possible? The site and the building itself were transformed beyond recognition. If it weren't for the address sign, Max wouldn't have believed his eyes. The house resembled the creation of a modern designer, and a very expensive one at that. By the way, Max saw similar projects in fashion magazines that he sometimes came across. A man, as if struck by thunder, looked at his once home and did not understand anything. How the house has changed so much. Who lives here now? Clearly not Helen anymore. She would hardly have had enough money for such an architect and for all these additions and improvements. This is a fortune. Max knew that his wife's business was thriving, and yet it was not such a profitable project that she could afford it. Most likely, Helen moved somewhere. Some local oligarch now lives here. But there's only one way to know for sure. Max decisively stepped towards the gate and pressed the bell button. A few moments later, a tanned, slender woman in house shorts and a long men's t-shirt slipped out of the house. Her hair is pulled back into a high ponytail, sneakers on feet. Max immediately recognized the owner of the house, Helen, and was happy and confused at the same time. He was already in the mood for a conversation with strangers who bought a house from his ex-wife. Seeing Max, Helen raised his eyebrows in surprise. She looked simply super fit, slim, well-groomed. I nodded. Max let Shelley in. The man was ready for a more than cool meeting. Still, many years ago, he acted rudely to his family. First, he sold half of the house to a poor student and then disappeared completely. He paid child support but never congratulated his son or daughter on his birthday. Didn't meet the children, essentially abandoned them. Yes, he was motivated by resentment, but this is no excuse for an adult. Max behaved like the ultimate scoundrel and traitor. It's a pity that the realization came so late. It seemed to him that Helen should hate him, but she smiled, and so warmly they walked through the garden, which had changed beyond recognition. Max, looking around and around, was more and more surprised. Helen, seeing this, smiled mysteriously. The designer also clearly worked on the interior decoration of the house. Everything around said that the family living here was clearly not experiencing financial difficulties. Wow, Max said, looking around the hall. Does your business bring in that kind of money? Business is booming. You're right, Helen smiled. And yet, we could not afford such a house. This is a different story. By the way, I tried to call you many times to thank you, but you didn't pick up. He was a fool. Max lowered his head. If you only knew how much I repent of this. I missed everything I could in the lives of my own children. They probably hate me now, and rightly so. You're wrong. Helen's eyes became serious and sad. Yes, you really missed a lot. But I found words to explain your behavior to the children. Don't worry. They grew up to be understanding and sensitive people. We're still waiting to meet you and waiting for you to be ready. As for your feelings of guilt, then consider that you have already received punishment. You have punished yourself. Stephen and Mary have brought me so much joy over the years, and you were deprived of this. Max sighed heavily. Tell me about them, please. Helen happily began talking about the children. This gives every mother special pleasure. It turns out that Stephen is a talented chess player, goes to tournaments all over the world, wins prizes, and is studying to become an economist. He himself decided not to leave home for now. Mary became interested in robotics from an early age. A childhood hobby determined the choice of profession. Now the girl is studying at the university, where she entered on her own without bribes or tutoring. In fact, she was enrolled in the course while she was still in 10th grade. The girl then won some kind of rating competition. There are even several articles about it on the internet. Max was glad that his children turned out to be so successful, smart, and kind. Helen took a plump photo album from the shelf and began showing her ex-husband photographs of Stephen and Irina. The man seemed to be getting to know his own children again. They were already so old and very beautiful. How could he be such a fool that he missed important milestones in life? "Tell me about yourself," Max asked. "How did you raise 2 children on your own and even achieve such success?" "And I wasn't alone." Helen shook her head. "Andy was always nearby. He quit and devoted all his time to developing our common business. Well, Andrew also helped us, and we all stood together for him during a difficult period." "Andrew?" Max was surprised. "Who else is this?" "That poor and, as it turned out, incredibly talented and promising student to whom you sold your part of the house." Before Max's eyes stood a thin boy with glasses covered in teenage acne. How could he help Helen? Noticing the confusion and surprise of her ex-husband, Helen said, "Andrew is just a gift of fate. At first, I was angry that he moved into our house. I scolded you with the last words. It was you who brought him. I was worried that the young man would start bringing groups of girls to his place, and they would wander around the house at night. What peace there is here." And then it turned out that Andrew is that rare student who's focused only on his studies. He studied at the architecture department and seemed to be seriously interested in specialized subjects. The young man led a quiet, calm life. He spent whole days sitting in his room, reading blueprints, designing something in an engineering program on an old laptop. The guy crawled out of his hiding place only to have a snack. By the way, Andrew was not shy about his family. He quickly realized that he was a kind of instrument of revenge in the hands of the famous ex-husband of the hostess, and this fact greatly puzzled Andrew. He behaved quietly and seemed to even feel a sense of guilt in front of all the Helens of the family. Although, of course, he was not to blame for anything. The guy was given a separate shelf in the refrigerator, and Andrew used it exclusively, saying what kind of food the boy had. Helen was perplexed how he had not yet died of hunger or a stomach ulcer. Bread, ketchup, cheap sausage, sometimes some yogurt or cookies. In the end, a woman took pity on the guy. Her maternal heart could not stand it, and one day she simply invited him to dinner. Helen was just frying chicken legs with potatoes and making a salad. Mind-blowing aromas spread, of course, throughout the house. Helen imagined a hungry student drooling in her room, and it made her feel uneasy. And in general, you finally need to find out more about the person with whom you live side by side. And some kind of relationship with him must be maintained. After all, they live in the same house. Andrew initially refused. Helen understood the reason perfectly. The young man was very shy, but hunger still took its toll. It turned out that the guy was raised only by his mother. She worked as a cleaner in a village store. No education, no special ambitions. How could such a rural and, in general, not distant woman have such a talented son capable of science? Perhaps it was all about the boy's father. What's his name? Who is he? Andrew did not have any information about his parent. Of course, at one time he asked his mother questions, but she always avoided answering. It was obvious that it was difficult for the woman to remember this. That's why Andrew fell behind her. Why torture your mother in vain? When the time comes, she will tell you herself. She won't keep this secret forever. The mother adored her only child. She tried to give him everything she could. For the sake of her son, the woman worked several shifts and saved money for the education of her heir. She immediately realized that she had got a real treasure. No one else in their village had such children. Andrew spent his entire childhood in the village. The boy was very different from the local kids. He was always attracted by the lines and silhouettes of buildings. He drew a lot. He wanted to come up with some special house. The best gifts for Andrew were paints, good pencils, and albums, a strange hobby for a village boy. Andrew's peers mostly played football. They kicked the ball on the field outside the outskirts from morning to evening. Andrew, on the other hand, remained indifferent to everyone's fun and generally made few friends with anyone. The local kids didn't understand him. Well, he accordingly, and then. It was hard for the boy, especially in adolescence, when it is so important to spend a lot of time surrounded by friends. Andrew simply didn't have them. He felt lonely, strange, unwanted. Drawing saved me from sad thoughts. Andrew, having finished with the obligatory household chores, locked himself in his room and created. He drew buildings, villages, modern cities, came up with outlandish structures, then improved them, and time flew by unnoticed while he worked. Lennips, the mother, coming home from the evening shift, often found her son falling asleep right at the table over the next drawing and smiled. She knew, she felt, Andrew had a great future ahead of him. And I told my boy about this more than once. Andrew is lucky. One day, his art teacher became interested in his workload. She saw them by chance. The sheets fell out of Andrew's folder and he feverishly began to collect. "What is this?" The teacher picked up one of the drawings and brought it to her slightly myopic eyes. Andrew thought that he would now be scolded for being distracted in class instead of drawing the assigned still life for 45 minutes. He became fascinated again with his fantasy cities. "Sorry," the boy stammered. For what?" The teacher was surprised. "Of course, I saw that you draw well, but these are just some kind of masterpieces. Will you show me?" Andrew nodded readily. Previously, only his mother had seen his work. The boy was a little embarrassed to show the drawings to the teacher, but she sincerely admired Andrew's creations, inserting some comments from time to time. This teacher's nephew, her sister's son, studied in the city to become an architect. The woman asked Andrew to lend her some drawings to show them to specialists. "Of course, I could be wrong, but it seems to me that you have a rare gift. I want my nephew to look at your drawings and maybe show them to someone at the university. Such talent should not be wasted." This is how Andrew's gift was discovered. The student, of course, immediately recognized the talent of the village boy, as did his teachers. Now Andrew was supervised by professionals. The boy often took part in competitions and almost every time he took prizes. Andrew, then an 8th grader, had already been accepted into the prestigious Faculty of Architecture in advance. All that remained was to finish school. And so, after finishing 11th grade, the guy was accepted into the local architectural university without exams. The teacher's nephew, Pasha, who became Andrew's friend over the years, advised him to enter the capital's university, but the boy assessed his capabilities perfectly. He would not have managed financially in the capital. In the outback, he had chances for an acceptable life. Moreover, the local administration awarded him a scholarship. Small, of course, but at least something. The mother, who dreamed of a bright future for her son, saved up some money so that Andrew could rent an apartment for the first time. And then he had to look for a job, because the guy's stipend would not be enough for rent and groceries. And his mother couldn't help him much. "I would like to, but I've been earning pennies all my life." The guy understood that studying and working was difficult, but where to go? And then suddenly this option with a house turned up by chance. Andrew couldn't even believe his eyes when he saw the ad, but having met Max, the boy realized the offer was quite real, although of course I immediately noticed that something was not right in this story, but there was neither time nor opportunity to speculate. So the young student became the owner of part of a large house. Andrew decided that it was fate, Helen recalled. Fate itself helps him achieve his goal. After all, if he had not found such cheap housing, he would not have been able to devote himself entirely to his studies and, accordingly, would not have achieved such high results. Who knows, maybe it really is fate. At that very first dinner together, Helen realized that Andrew was an amazingly kind and modest person. He was in a very difficult situation. He did not have enough stipend for nutritious food. His mother could not help him. The boy tried to earn extra money, but his studies suffered from this. Employers needed a person who could devote at least 4 hours to work. When to study? Helen's heart sank with pity when she saw sleepy Andrew and offered him a way out. He had to take Mary to robotics 3 times a week and Stephen to chess school. For this, I promised to feed him breakfast, lunch and dinner for free and invite him to the table with the whole family. I just didn't feel sorry for a bowl of soup for him, but Andrew would definitely not agree. Shared meals brought Andrew and Helen's family even closer together. He became very friendly with Stephen and Mary and became their older friend. Andrew enjoyed playing chess with Stephen and helping design robots. Both son and daughter were delighted with their new neighbor. Both quickly became attached to him. Andrew really liked Andy too. The men talked for a long time, discussing various topics. Tellingly, they had similar opinions on many issues. The guy tried to help his neighbors in everything. There was no need to ask him. In the end, everyone got so used to him that they began to consider him a member of the family. And then suddenly, disaster struck. Andrew was already in his 4th year of study, with just a little time left before graduation. He saw that his mother tried for him, stretched with all her might, and he really wanted to thank her to make her life happy, comfortable, bright. Take mom to the sea, where she has never been, go to an expensive restaurant, buy her beautiful clothes, and there was nothing left until this happy moment. Andrew knew that as soon as he received his diploma, he would immediately receive a good job offer. Yes, they have already done so. True, they are still unofficial. However, Andrew started earning money while still a student and even managed to transfer some money to his mother. But the main thing is that success was still ahead. Andrew's mother did not live to see this moment. Helen was obviously trying to hold back her tears. A neighbor called Andrew and told him terrible news. Andrew's dearest person died of a heart attack. It is unknown how Andrew would have survived this blow if Helen and Andy had not supported him. The guy became isolated and stopped learning to take care of himself. He hardly ate. Nothing had worried the cheerful and curious young man before. He would lie on his couch all day and just stare at the ceiling. "We were always close," said Ellen. They supported him, provoked him to talk, to give him the opportunity to express his emotions. "I forced Andrew to eat. Otherwise, he probably would have died of hunger." Andrew became very thin and pale. Slowly, the guy came to his senses. Of course, it took him a long time to recover from the stress and get used to a life in which his dearest and most beloved person was not there. But at least I started eating and returned to university. Helen realized that everything would be fine with him now and breathed a sigh of relief. During this period, I was really afraid that he would do something to himself. Andrew didn't look like himself. You won't believe it. Several times during the night, I walked past his room and listened. "You are a very kind and good person," said Max. Helen was confused. Time passed. Andrew became his old self again and took up his textbooks. Now he could again be seen sitting at his desk with a ruler and pencil in his hands over a divided sheet of Whitman paper. Andrew devoted a lot of time to his studies and also participated in competitions. One day, a young talented architect won a grant for his first real project of arranging an ordinary house and the surrounding area. It was a huge competition. The guy had to compete with experienced architects, and yet he won. The sponsor allocated a lot of money. Of course, Andrew took on the project with enthusiasm. It was as if wings had grown behind his back. The talented young man chose the very house in which he lived as his object. Andrew took into account the wishes of all family members. The household gathered around a round table and held a kind of meeting. Everyone took turns speaking out. Andrew was making notes in his diary. Helen dreamed of a swimming pool. Andy dreamed of a combined house and garage. The children wanted beautiful fountains and a sports ground. It was not easy to combine all these applications into one harmonious project. But Andrew didn't like primitive tasks. As a result, our house was transformed. Helen shared her memories. Now he has become the way you see him. Andrew completed it in record time and won the competition. After that, offers rained down on him from all sides. Andrew has just graduated from and there's already a high demand for his services. At first, the guy was even confused by the abundance of orders. Andy helped him figure it out. Together they built some sophisticated tables, weighed all the pros and cons, and weeded out projects that were not worth taking on. Now Andrew was often away from home. He had to work in different cities and even abroad. The whole family missed him during these periods. Andrew always returned from trips with gifts and vivid impressions. He grew up literally before our eyes. The guy turned from a poor student into a wealthy man. There was now a lot of money in his accounts. He could afford to buy a house anywhere in the country or even move somewhere in Europe. But Andrew didn't want to change anything in his life. The guy got used to a family that supported him during a difficult period. They all became like family. And then Andrew met his fate. Helen smiled. He fell in love with a girl from a neighboring town. And so our boys separated and flew out of the nest. Of course, when leaving the house, Andrew gave its inhabitants a gift. He rewrote his part to Helen. Now she has become the sole owner of the beautiful house and grounds. The guy himself bought a spacious apartment for himself and his wife. We often call each other and go to visit each other. Helen continued to tell. Now Irina is studying and Andrew is looking after her. I feel calmer this way. You gave us all a huge gift when you sold your part of the house to him. I tried to tell you this, but you... The story was interrupted by a little girl, a baby about 4 years old. She ran into the hall and, seeing a stranger, froze, batting her eyelashes in confusion. Nice girl. Just 2 braided pigtails, a nose, plump lips in a bow, rosy cheeks. She must have just woken up from a nap. Zhenya, hello. The girl stammered, remembering politeness, and then completely out of etiquette. And who are you? Max was confused. How would he introduce himself to this little girl? Don't explain to the little one that he was there. And her mother's husband. Apparently, this is our friend. Helen smiled at the girl, or never did. The little girl said thoughtfully. The news that his ex-wife had become a mother again shocked him for some reason. Helen laughed loudly. You should have seen your face, she said, pulling herself together. No, Anne is not our daughter. Andy and I were planning a child, but it didn't work out. This is Andrew's child. He and his wife were flying to a conference in France. There is no place for the girl there, and her parents have no time for her. They will have enough of their own to do. So Anne is visiting us, and we are glad. She is like a granddaughter or niece to us, a wonderful child. Max and Helen talked for several hours straight. They remembered the past and discussed the children. Helen was genuinely interested in Max's new life. Having learned that he had 2 twin daughters, she was completely delighted and urgently demanded to see their photo of the baby. Be sure to come and visit us with them. These are sisters Irina and Stephen. They need to know each other. Now we will communicate, right? All grievances and misunderstandings are behind us. Max nodded. Next to Helen, he felt calm and relaxed. It seemed that everything was not so complicated and confusing. The weight that had been placed on my shoulders all these years seemed to evaporate. Of course, there is still a lot of work ahead. You need to get to know your older children again and somehow explain your behavior to them. But the main thing is that Helen is on his side. She does not harbor any grudge against her ex-husband and sincerely wishes that peace and tranquility reign in their now such a large family. Anyone else in her place would be gloating now. I wish I had turned the children against the careless hubby. How lucky he was to have her. He played a significant role in this whole story. You should definitely thank him on occasion. Stephen will arrive soon. Helen looked at Max, who was even sweating on his back. Will he really see his son now? What to tell him? How to start a conversation? It seems that the man came here precisely to meet the children. So why now, when it is just around the corner, do you want to run away as far as possible again? I'm a little worried, the man admitted. I understand, but there is no need to worry. Helen covered her ex-husband's hand with her hand. Everything will be fine. And then the woman practically quote, as long as we are alive, it's not too late to fix anything. The main desire